the officially unofficial Rings of Power After Party brought to you by Fellowship of Fans and the Watch Party Network. I'm Michael, and with me on screen is my partner, Jen Gallagher. Hey, Jen.
Hey, everybody.
Together, we host the Watch Party Network's Lord of the Rings podcast, and I believe on screen we already have our full first panel. Trisha. Hey, Trisha.
Hello.
John, good to see you. Weathering the storm out
Hey,
there.
how's it going? Yes, yeah, we have power, so that's good.
That's very good. Good. And hey, Lottie, how are you?
Hi, I'm Grace. Good to be here.
So something's a little bit different this week. The stream's going to look and feel slightly different because Kyle, who usually runs our stream, he is right in the eye of the storm, Hurricane Fiona. He's fine, I'm sure, but he's experiencing some power outages throughout the day, so he couldn't run the stream. So my main man, Varking, stepped up and figured out how to run this stream. So I want to start things off by giving a big thank you to Varking, who has been just running himself ragged doing Lord of the Rings stuff. Yesterday, he was on... he did an interview on Reddit with one of the cast members who played Poppy, and then he was on a stream with Voice of Geekdom, and then in between all that, he was somehow figuring out how to run a stream. So big thank you to Varking.
And huge shout outs to Kyle and Fellowship for trying to text me in the middle of the day randomly with instructions on at least how to get this up so we can still do this for you guys today. Thank you to everybody for being here, and just looking forward to the show.
Yeah, so bear with us if there's any hiccups. I don't think there will be. I think we got this handled, but we're really excited. We're going to do kind of a streamlined show. Going to skip the mid segment. I'm not going to do the screen sharing and all that type of stuff. So the only thing I want to mention before we jump into our first panel is, of course, every week we are featuring a great Tolkien artist, and we're not going to share his art on screen. Can't do that. But throughout the stream, Katie, one of our moderators in the chat, is going to be posting links to his art, various pieces. He's a great artist, does a lot of Silmarillion stuff, Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit as well. So go check out his stuff, click away real briefly during the stream, check out his stuff, because he's donated 2 pieces, and it's any 2 pieces. So the winner of today's raffle can go to his shop and just peruse his catalog and pick any 2 pieces, and he'll ship a couple of those prints. And just to be clear, there are some limited edition prints that are listed. Those are not included just because they're no longer in print. But everything else, there's a ton of options. And for everyone else, even if you don't win the raffle, you can enjoy a discount code at his store, Fellowship30 at checkout. You get 30% off. So please go support Kip Rasmussen. And to participate in the raffle, get your super chats in. Every $1 that you donate a super chat is one raffle ticket. And at the end of the day, we'll do a drawing and announce the winner. So I think that's it. We're going to keep it real streamlined today, and I'm going to kick it off to Jen to take us away on our discussion of episode 5.
All right. Well, welcome everyone on the newbie panel. I'll quickly introduce them. We've got John from the What Up YouTube channel. Welcome.
Hey, folks. How's it going? Thanks for having me again. Appreciate being here.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun.
Trisha Iran from Beyond the Screenplay. Welcome back.
Hi, good to be here.
And Lottie from Shell Cottage Radio.
Hi, it's awesome to be here today.
All right. Well, we're going to get right into it. We have a lot to get to in this episode. A very, very brief recap. This week, we rejoined the Harfoots, and we witnessed some of their migration, as well as some interesting interactions between Nori and Meteor Man. We saw Numenor prepare for war. We saw ships burn. A lot of intrigue there. We saw the elves reveal the reason they are after Mithril in the first place. And Bronwyn faces a terrible choice. So a lot to get to. I'm going to ask you all for your one-word reaction to the episode and why. So I'd like to start with Trisha this week.
Oh boy. I'm going to go with theme, because I thought that this week was really the first week that I was able to see some themes emerging. It's difficult when I can get into it later, but in screenwriting we talk about theme, and like it's kind of like, what does it all mean, or sort of like, how does everything tie together? What is the big idea that like these stories are exploring? And I felt like this week there were multiple conversations as the theme, which is like loosely, I want to say, about the fine line between good and evil, but we can get into it. I saw that kind of coming out in a few conversations this week, and those that listen to beyond the screenplay know that I'm obsessed with theme. And so I got really excited by some of the emergence of theme this week.
Yes, it was absolutely a theme heavy week, and we're starting to see real conflict, right? Things are coming to a boiling point in most of our storylines, which is what you want to see, I think, this far into the season.
Yeah, it's about time.
It's about time. All right, we'll go to you, Lottie.
Yeah, I think that connects directly to what Trish said. My word of the week is trust as a
Ooh.
theme. So trust as a theme between, we see Elrond and Gilgalad and Orduran. Both of them have, we don't really know if did Elrond really break his trust to Durin, but then in the end it seems he didn't. And then of course Bronwyn and her people, even Nori and the stranger or Meteor Man. How do you call him Meteor Man?
Either one works, yeah. We don't know his name.
Right, so. We don't know his name yet. So and then of course Galadriel and Halbrand and many, many more actually, but those are just a few of them who struggle with the theme of trust this week.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Trust being breached is going to be, the major source of conflict and it's culture clashes too, right? It's these cultures interacting on the basis of trust, and when that's breached, what happens?
Right.
So I like that a lot as a high level theme. We'll go to you, John.
I'm going to say story driven. It's a hyphenated word. Still one word though. We'll go with that. I thought this was the first episode where I really started to pick up on the story. Up until this one, I would say it was a $2 story and a $10 show that made any sense. And I think they actually started to shift the other way now, actually starting to get more story and more characters interaction, which is what I like character driven stuff. And so yeah, that's my word of the week. I really enjoyed this episode.
Yeah, I'm going to read something from the super chat that's relevant, which is that people are really likewise enjoyed this episode the most. Like their ratings, each and every one gets higher and higher with every episode, and that this was the most well-liked episode thus far. I think because, as you said, John, it's very plot-driven. And I want to jump in right at the beginning with the Harfoots. We have a super chat from Augusto. Forgive me with your last name. Goncalves. Poppy song and Nampet theme orcs marching was the best thing of this episode. So I'm going to agree with you that Poppy's song was absolutely lovely. I'd love to get your reactions to seeing the Harfoot migration and seeing things with the stranger kind of heat up. So take it away, Trisha.
Yeah, I adore Poppy, and so I was so happy to get to see her, sing a little bit, and it's very. I don't know much about Tolkien lore, but I have read The Hobbit, and I know that there's a lot of songwriting that goes on. Tolkien wrote a lot of songs for these books, and so it's nice to see that aspect of the Harfoot culture and of the texture of the world being explored a little bit. And the song itself was just lovely. I thought it came at an unusual point in the episode. Normally, we kind of save a little montage for later in the episode, just structurally. So it seemed like a strange place a little bit for that. But I overall really enjoyed it. And I do think that what's happening with the stranger plot line is really interesting, where it seemed like up until this episode, Nori was dead set that the stranger was good. And they have that exchange at the beginning where he asks if he's a peril and she says, no, you're good. And then we see him do something good. And even though the rest of the Harfoots had been doubting that he was, they were just whispering about what bad luck he is. And then he does something good and saves them from the wolves. And then by the end of it, though, they have that issue with the ice and his power's gone out of control. And it seems like now the Harfoots believe he is good, but now Nori is potentially going to, seeding some doubt in there. So I thought overall it was eventful, exciting. Those scenes with the Harfoots migrating, gorgeous. I'd still
gorgeous shots of the landscape. Yes.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's what you want. And I think overall the Harfoots are still my favorite plot line. It's still the one I'm most interested in.
Man, that Malva character, though, I think that was her name. I found that really interesting that she was talking to Sadek and wanted to take the wheels off of their caravan and
Absolutely
leave them. I thought that
ruthless.
was so ruthless. Yeah, that was the only thing that did not work for me about the storyline, is that last episode I was defending them, saying, well, maybe it's that they had to leave them behind because they were severely injured. But this was clearly, let's sabotage them because they're slowing us down. That's a whole different issue. So that was the only thing that didn't work for me. But like you, I loved the song, loved the whole montage. But I'm curious to get your thoughts, John.
Like Trisha said, the Harfoots are still my favorite storyline. I love them to pieces. Poppy's my favorite character in the entire show.
Yeah.
Poppy and Nori, I guess. They're tied for number one, both of them. I love them so much. But I liked the song. I liked when they went through and the stranger was starting to doubt if he was good, but everyone I love all that. I love how they kind of put everything together there. But I know you're all hating on Malva, but no, I think she's just a pragmatic Karen. That's all she is. She wants to speak to the caravan's manager. That's what that's about. She wants to get there with no problems, and she just wants to cut the problems out. I actually didn't mind her as a character at all, because I thought that was actually what at least someone would act that way. So
I guess I'm just gonna share my thoughts now. I don't know if I lost you guys. No, okay.
I cut off very abruptly there, I guess.
I'm sorry. No, yeah, I know it's boring, but I agree. I mean, I guess we all kind of agree that the Harfoots are lovely, and it's always, I get a good feeling when I see them, and I enjoyed their migration. I enjoyed the shots of that's New Zealand, right? They shot that in New Zealand.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Loved the song. So two things. I'm a very easy audience. I feel everything. I feel like I feel everything that they want me to feel. So I feel heartbroken that Nori and the stranger now have a, distrust. Nori she was, especially after the beginning when she was so sweet with him. And now she's having doubts about that. So I'm very sad about that, but I know that it has to happen, and it's good for the story. Another thing that I was wondering about was how much time did how far did they get? Because it seems like quite a lot of time has to pass.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it looks like they got quite far. So now I'm wondering, is that still the same timeline we experience with the other storylines? That was my question in this case.
I love the way they use the map. That's
Yes.
that is probably the best way to me, not knowing much about how Middle Earth is supposed to look or how anything is, to know where they're at and what's going on. But like you said, Lottie, I'm pretty sure, and again, I'm letting everybody know I've read no theories. I don't watch any of the stuff on this on purpose so I can do this stream, but I think they're completely different timelines. They got to be
okay.
Except for the fact that they did see the meteor at the same time as everybody else.
Did everyone see it all at the same time?
They all saw it at the same time. They all saw it at the same time. And so
okay,
that's the only thing that gives me pause in thinking that. But yeah, certainly I think they are playing with a lot of the high level themes with Meteor Man. Is he light or dark? And you see this with so many of the different characters, right? He may not even know. You see him wrestling with, am I a peril? Am I light? Am I dark? Yeah. What is this inner conflict that I have? And that's clearly going on with someone like Hallbrand as well. So I'm enjoying that play out as we learn more and more about who this person is, and does he know who he is? He clearly is confused. He's not sure. So it's fun to go on that journey with him.
Yeah, I think to sort of dive into the themes a little bit as you're getting at with light and darkness, I thought it was interesting to see different characters wrestling with that in this episode. Hallbrand for sure, and even Galadriel, which I want to come back to. But you know,
Mhm.
in the plot line with the Southlanders, there is that question too of like, is this our
Mhm.
destiny? Are we fundamentally destined to align ourselves with evil? And maybe there's nothing we can do about it because it's in our blood. It's our ancestors. They made that choice already for us. I think that that's all really fascinating. And I think too, you know, in the scene with Galadriel talking to Halbrand, we even see Galadriel wrestling with that, right? She says, the people in my life couldn't distinguish me from the evil that I was fighting. And that's part of the reason why I feel like I can't stop fighting. But there's that sort of question of, like, she says the line to Halbrand, right? We have to touch the darkness to know what the light is, which is a repeat of what her brother said to her in the prologue of the whole show. So I wonder if, and that's honestly, all of that coming out in this episode made me really excited. And it made me wonder if, you know, I've been hearing rumblings and whisperings, not that I've been reading them on purpose, that we're being misled by the show about who turns out to be who, right? So
Oh yeah.
the question of who Sauron is was raised specifically in the text of this episode as what's his face,
Adar
tavern
or whatever.
keeper. Yeah, tavern keeper man was like, we pledge our service to you, aren't you Sauron? And Adar seemed mad and was like, you know, acting like he isn't Sauron. We don't know who the stranger is. I had thought he was probably Gandalf. Maybe he is Peril. Maybe he is going to turn out to be evil. And I do think it's really interesting that it seems like the show might be moving towards exploring these themes of good and evil and how close they can be to each other, more in the text. Whereas up until this week, I was kind of like, what is this show about? Like, what are the themes here? And it's nice to see some of these things actually starting to be a part of the decisions that the characters have to make. I do wish that there was a little bit more of what it might mean, like what evil is and what good is. I thought I was thinking back about the prologue of Fellowship, and the evil that Sauron is defined in Galadriel's voiceover. I looked it up in the screenplay today. She says, you know, into the ring, Lord Sauron poured his cruelty, his malice, and his will to dominate. And that's what evil is. And we define it in the prologue: cruelty, malice, will to dominate. And I feel like if the show is going to get into the fine line between good and evil, I want to see them get into some of that. What does it look like? What actually is evil? Define it in this world. What actually is good, instead of the sort of vague metaphors of light and darkness, because those are pretty vague.
I feel like they are touching on, you know, evil being just death and decay and everything. You know, we see the animals in the Southlands. There's some weird black secretion that comes out of them, and everything is, you know, the land is dying. And then we see the conflict between the elves and the dwarves. It's also about dwindling away, which in the end means dying. The fun part about it is we don't even know if dying is evil. Is that something evil? You know, that's a big question that I know where you're getting at, because it's not really defined in terms of what's that big darkness that always gets mentioned, but we don't really know. They say it's Sauron, but we don't really know who he is. Galadriel doesn't even know, so she is really just trusting the word of Halbrand that where she needs to go. So yeah, I get your struggle with that.
Yeah, I think it's cool. I just want a little bit, and the show is just now starting to like discuss theme in the text. So I'm hopeful that there will be more of it as it goes along. Also, they've got a bunch of seasons ahead, so they have a little bit of time. But I'm always just like, my theme radar is always like, what is this about?
And Amazon loves their mysteries. They like hiding. They like hiding things. They like trying to trick people. I don't even know if we'll find out some of the answers to these questions this season. It might be season 2 or 3 or beyond. They may do the real slow burn, which I hope they don't. I hope they answer some of them at least. But yeah, like I actually liked Adar. Is that how you pronounce it? I like him. Like he's billed as a bad guy, of course, because he's in charge of the orcs, and the orcs we all know are bad and evil and horrible. But I liked him, and I want to know why and how he came to be the way he is. Like I like a villain you can identify with, and I think they're going to go that route with him. I hope anyway, because he has of course the scarring on his face, and he hates the sun, and he said it'll be gone soon. They won't have to deal with it anymore, and he's with the orcs, but it's not really explained how or why he's there. I really like all of that, and I hope that they at least tie that end off before the end of the season.
He's a fascinating character. And as Trisha said before, I keep going back to the very beginning of this show with the prologue. And the first words are, nothing is evil in the beginning. And so I keep going back to that to search out those higher level themes. And I think that's perhaps what we're saying with Adar. And his relationship to the orcs is so interesting to me. He clearly he cares for them. And that exchange between he and the orc this time, where he says, I wish you could experience the sun like I did. Soon it will be gone so that you can, walk freely. But I wish that you could have that experience, feeling it on your skin. Like there's again, we see so much tenderness there.
And they call him father too, which is neat.
Yes.
I mean, I like that.
And they call him father. So, but as you said before, Trisha, we are supposed to see these folks as evil, but we need more of like, why is this guy dark and bad? And why should we not like him? Because, yeah, for sure, his plot line is so interesting to me. I want to learn more and more about how he came to be the way that he is.
Right. And what kind of lies is he talking about?
Yeah.
Right. We still don't know the lies that he's referring to. Well, I want to move to Numenor. And that whole storyline this time, because we're seeing them prepare to go to war, right? And clearly this is very controversial within the kingdom. There are those who think this is foolish to go defend the elves. Why are we defending the elves in the first place? We don't like them. We see Pharazôn, who talks about why he's excited about conquering Middle Earth for resources, essentially. And that's sort of his angle. We got Galadriel and Halbrand in that very intimate exchange where she's trying to get him to get on board with going back to Middle Earth when that's the very last place that he wants to go. So there was a lot of meaty stuff, meaty dialogue there. And I think the Numenorian plot at this point is probably my favorite. So I'd love to get your thoughts on it. We'll start with Lottie this time.
Yeah, I enjoy Numenor, especially because of the visuals too. Every time we see it, I think it looks stunning. I love the party, how the party looks. It looks very like the lights and the lightness before they leave, and it's always stunning, right? They leave because they're going to go to battle, but it feels like there's a lightness and a pride and a happiness to it somehow that's kind of a contrast to what's going to happen. So I still am also confused. What's the deal with Pharazôn and Pharazôn's son? Is he really is he his son? Because sometimes I'm not really sure. And he's the one who's trying to blow the ship up.
Yes, Kemen.
Right, Kemen. Yes, yeah, and his interesting relationship with Isildur's sister. So that's really, again, something we see where it's about trust and who's right. And they're both, I mean, I'm sure Isildur thinks he's doing the right thing, but also his sister is thinking, why is my brother and my father, why are they both going to war? And I mean, she's losing her family, essentially. So I do want to know more about that part of the story. I also want to talk about, sorry if I'm saying too much here about this.
No, go.
But I also want to talk about, because I'm most of the time I'm pretty positive about the show. I did not enjoy the sword fighting that much, honestly, because to me it
not
was
a lot of people enjoyed that.
I mean,
the consensus.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Because she's trying to teach them, but at the same time, what if they do hit her? Then they stab her, or yeah, it was kind of strange to me how she jumped in there trying to teach them, and then yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it didn't. That part just didn't. I didn't enjoy it as much. But yeah, I'll
It
let the
seemed
others
like a
speak.
Yes, I think that scene was a little cheeky and a little overdone. I feel like we've seen that scene before. It's a very familiar, like, I'm doing cool things and I'm a badass. I mean, I thought it added a little bit of levity to the episode. What did you think, John?
I didn't like that scene, not because I felt out of place. I thought that's something that probably Galadriel would do,
Mm-hmm.
but because they cheaped out on the fight choreography really badly. I just thought it was felt out of place with how well they do everything else. Like it was not great. It seemed very 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 when I was watching it, and that's all I could think in my head. Was like, oh, it ruined it for me. But I do like the Numenor plotline. It's not my favorite plotline, but it's not my least favorite either. But I think the Chancellor and the Queen Regent are probably my two favorite characters in that plotline. I love them both so much, and I like how much of a politician the Chancellor is. I enjoy that, where he's talking about tribute and if they do this for the Southlands, they're going to get these things and it'll entrench them further, and eventually the elves will bow to them. I love that because he's not necessarily an evil man. He wants power, and that's
But clearly power hungry, yes.
Oh, very, very much so. But he's a politician, and most politicians are kind of like that. So I enjoyed that part of it a lot. I don't like anything to do with the ocean and the ships. They get a lot of stuff wrong there, and that's just me nitpicking and watching it and going, "Oh, God."
What do you feel like they get wrong?
Just there's a whole lot where the motion, the things they're doing, the way the people are walking on the ships, the way they talk and they act and they move. I'm well acquainted with people who live and work on the water a lot, and for a sailing nation, that's they I don't think they got it right.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
that's me, again, me being completely nitpicky. I love the storyline; everything's beautiful. That's just little nitpicky things for me.
I think the language they're using is often very, very often, nautical. They try to always make it like seafaring speak, I've noticed, with the dialogue, and I've appreciated that. But I wouldn't know anything about them, being actual seaworthy people, how they're walking, how they're using the ships. But that seems like a big error if that is indeed like setting off alarm bells for people who are familiar with it.
Most people probably wouldn't pick up on any of that at all, because I had to rewatch it a couple times and I just went back through and I looked. I'm like, oh, and it's all small things. But I mean, you're not going to coach extras or people in the background and exactly what they're supposed to do for every single thing. They're just going to let them go. And Wayne Yip's an excellent director. He's absolutely fantastic, but I don't think he'd be that involved where he's moving extras around constantly. So
what did you think about the Kemen burning the ship and Isildur, stowing away in their relationship?
So I think it's one of those things where they're going to eventually become friends, even though they're on opposite sides of the coin right now. I could be completely wrong in that, but I like the fact that he covered for him, and that's pretty much how he got his spot, I think. So I like that he used that to his advantage, and I liked Kemen. I don't like at all. I don't like him as a character. Not even a little bit. He's greasy, grimy, slimy little shit.
To me, I would think if I were Kemen, I would probably want to cozy up to Isildur because I care about his sister.
Sure.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Make the brother happy to get in with the family, so to speak. Make the father happy. But I don't know. I don't know what his play is. What he's doing.
I do really like. Yeah. Go ahead, Trisha.
Oh, I was just gonna say, the one thing that I'm always looking out for in this show are like crystal clear motivations. And we did get a couple moments in this episode, especially in the Numenorian storyline, where people explained why they were doing things, and those reasons were compelling. And so, Farazan is one example, where he was like, resources, they will be indebted to us forever. This is a very compelling reason for us to support them in this very silly, what I think is a very silly war, that won't take too much of our time, but they'll be really grateful for it. And so when you get a scene like that, a character is explaining a motivation and has a compelling reason, it starts to feel like okay, this is something I can buy into. It feels like real character, real plot work, all that stuff that's like just sort of narrative meat that we need. And there were a few other instances, you know, partially with Muriel when she was worried about what do we do. And then, you know, we know why Isildur lied to get himself on board the ship. He protected Kemen, but he also lied to make himself look good and get himself on board the ship, which we knew was a goal that he had. So characters doing things for motivations that are very clear is great. And that feels like story is happening and moving along. There are other characters in this show that don't have super clear motivations. Halbrand is a bit of a mess. And I know that the show is obscuring his motivations on purpose. But that doesn't hook me into, I don't know what he wants. He says he wants to stay here. Why? That's not a super clear goal and it's not compelling. And his motivations for doing so are not clear. They push Galadriel in this storyline to explain why she is acting the way she's acting. And she does a little until she runs up against, I can't stop because I can't stop. Cool. Like my brother died, great, but why else? Okay, but that's just me. I can't stop. And again, I'm looking for a little more soul searching from her. What does it mean that I can't stop? That troubles me that I can't stop. What does that mean about myself? And obviously not in so many words, but I think there is some motivational cloudiness that's still happening. But the times when it has been cleared up, and it felt like that happened a few times in this episode, it felt like a breath of fresh air to me where I was like, I know why they're doing that and I'm on board. Let's go do this. Let's go to Middle Earth. So I really appreciate some of the narrative work that's being done here.
I thought that the scene between Halbrand and Galadriel was one of those moments actually for me, where I felt like, all right, we're getting some humanity from her.
Definitely.
And I wonder what you thought of that exchange. That scene between those two.
I think it's a step in the right direction. Again, I'm hoping for a little more thematic meat and character meat from her, where she's wondering, where the text could perhaps more directly address. She said, people in my life can't distinguish me from the evil that I was fighting.
Very big problem, yeah.
Right. But what about her actions was causing that reaction in people that she cares about? And like, is it because I was too single-minded? Is it because I'm being selfish? Is it because I want revenge? You know, again, sort of defining the evil that she's worried about, the darkness that she is afraid of in herself. Again, I think we're moving towards it, and I'm relieved to find out that we're moving towards it. But I'm curious to see how much that theme starts to develop and crystallize as the series goes on.
Lottie, you look like you're dying to say something. Go.
I feel like, I love the elves. And I feel like this ties a little bit into also what we see with the other elves in Linden this episode, because I feel like elves, they're just very vague. They're not straightforward with you. Their speech says everything, and it reminds me a little bit because we just discussed a chapter in Harry Potter where the centaurs in the Forbidden Forest are like that too. They don't tell you much. They speak a little bit in riddles, or they act like, oh, we know all of this stuff, but we can't tell you exactly. So that's how I feel with the elves sometimes, and I feel like we forget sometimes that they're so old, and I don't know. Maybe they forget that all the other creatures around them, most of the time, they're not that old, and they need maybe a little bit more explanation with things. But I get where it's like, okay, why can't you not stop? With Elrond and all the elves around him, they tried to. So he finds out he was actually sent to the dwarves, right? And he was very upset about that. And I almost feel like he knew it a little bit, that he was not just there for friendship, right? He knew that, but he didn't know how severe the problem was. And then in this episode, we find out the elves are gonna die because what is that the darkness? Is the tree? Does the tree actually keep them alive in Middle Earth? That's what I was wondering.
Let's get to the elves and the dwarves. Because
Sorry,
I
I'm
think
jumping.
I think there was, if I were watching this without any context, I think that some of this may have been confusing. So I'm going to let you guys speak because I have my
Very
own
much
thoughts.
so.
But let's talk to you, John. The elf and dwarf, the mithril plot line, the explanation of how it was
Weird.
created, the formation.
Weird.
Okay,
So
you thought it was weird.
Well, so the explanation how it's created, that's fine. That's a story based in lore and it's a myth, and okay, I can get on board with that. Sure, that's how
It's
it seemed
not
to me.
actually based in lore, but it's lore akin. That's what I'll say. That's all I'll say.
So
lore adjacent. There we go.
Okay, lore adjacent. So I can get on board with that. We'll say it's a story they passed down, and this is how it is. It didn't literally happen that way, but it's one of those things. So I can get on board with that. Why they need it, I have no bloody idea. Like I'm left out in the dark. Why they want this? Do they want to reforge one of the what are the lights called? What were they called? The things in the trees, the jewels. They talked about them before. I can't remember.
The Silmarils, those things.
Yes, the Silmarils. Are they trying to reforge one of those? Do they need it for that? Do they need it to capture the light? I have no idea. It's really confusing, and I really also didn't like Elrond in this episode at all because he's an idiot. He is completely stupid. So he just keeps saying, "I can't betray my friend. I can't." He did by saying that he betrayed his friend completely because he just basically told Gil-galad that the stuff's there and that's where it is and that's what they have. Because every time he's asked a question, he wasn't evasive. He didn't lie. He didn't whatever. He just said, "I'm not going to betray my friend." Very stone faced, and that's just like telling him what he wants to hear. So to me, I didn't like that. Maybe that's his character. Maybe that's what he would do, but I thought it was kind of silly. I liked all the scenes with Elrond and Durin. Durin's one of my favorite characters. I love all the dwarves to pieces. They're absolutely amazing. They're well acted. They're well thought out. They're beautiful looking. Like I think they're fantastic. I like when they get the table back. For example, he lied about that. Just get the table back to piss Gil-galad off. That was awesome. That made me. That was my favorite part of the whole episode. Made me very happy.
That was hilarious. Yeah.
But I like you said with the mithril storyline. I don't know. I don't want someone to explain it to me. I'd rather the show do that. If that makes any sense at all. I'd like them to say this is why we need this and this is why it's important, rather than saying it's important and then just leave it at that. Like I kind of like the explanation behind it because Elrond should know, or Gil-galad should have told Elrond why it's important. So, we need this to stop us from dying out, but why? How are they going to eat it? Like, is it something? Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
Yeah,
I have no idea.
Yeah, and why, if it's so urgent, why didn't they just come out with it and told the dwarves what the deal is? You know, like we learned that Durin is totally fine with it, and he's like, okay, if I can save you guys with that, obviously I'm going to do that. And he's actually he thinks it's pretty cool because he's saving the elves this time, and we learn earlier the relationship between them, how he changed the story a little bit, that he saved Elrond in that when they met, right? So
and now you can actually save him, which is neat. Yeah,
right. And I was wondering why sorry, Trish. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Gil-galad, I just wanted to agree with John that Gil-galad, why does he keep asking? I mean, Elrond basically gave you the answer in saying, I'm not telling you their secrets. So why does he keep asking? But
agree, it's confusing for those of us that don't know what in the hell is going on. And I will say too, there's this, I think what I'm dealing with, or maybe to identify what the three of us are potentially struggling with, is that we need, like, worlds that are unfamiliar to us need rules established in the text. And overall, this show has established only a few rules actually in the text. Like, I know orcs get burned by the sunlight. That's a rule that the text has showed me. And a few others along those lines about things. Elves are immortal unless you cut them in the neck a little bit, and then they're definitely dead. And so got that. Okay, the show showed me that. But I think the thing the rules are muddiest when we get to the elves storyline.
Mhm.
I don't know where they get their power from, what it takes. Somebody mentioned in this episode that Elrond's dad was not an elf. I'm sorry, what? Somebody said he was a mortal man? Excuse me? I thought that he was an elf that eventually became sort of a Greek god that had something to do with the stars and the something now, and he ascended. So I'm not sure anything about that. That was a bit confusing. But then also the way that Gil-galad is describing what's going to happen to the elves is he's like, we are going to diminish until we are gone. And then the darkness will overtake not just us, but all the races in the whole world. And I was like, how do you know? Has this happened before? Is this
He's
a
watched
thing?
a never-ending story.
Is this a thing that happens a lot? Like, is this... I'm sorry. Is this like a very definite path? Well, I see that there's darkness inside of the leaves of the tree. We all know what that signals because it's a definite course of events that we're all familiar with. I am utterly boggled by the entire thing. Other than I know that I like Elrond and Durin as friends. And
Yes.
Elrond and Durin like seem like they're gonna make a deal about the Mithril, and somebody else is gonna end up like, you know, betraying, taking more Mithril than the elves want to give, or than the dwarves want to give, or there's going to be a betrayal. I'm not sure exactly how and why, but it's going to end up being.
And I think it'll cause a fight between the two of them.
Oh, of course it will.
Yeah.
But why the elves think the Mithril is going to help them, I also don't know.
Okay, so if I were just watching this show with no context, I think what they were saying through the show at this moment is Mithril is a combination of these powers of light and dark, which created a Silmaril. And
the show has
we
not
can-
told us what those are, by the way. They've
Okay.
mentioned them a few times and have not told us what the hell a
Yes.
Silmaril is.
Right. But they're thinking at this moment, the elves are thinking if we could harness Mithril and absorb some of this power and this light, we will be restored to our full power. That's what I would get if I were just watching the show with no context. So to me, that is a confusing idea. It's very abstract.
So I took watching it as it was a fable. The Balrog fighting the elf was a fable, and that's what caused this to happen. Should I have taken it completely literally, and that it's just magic from both of them seeped into the ground, and that's what they need to live? That's my question.
I think it's
If they've never encountered it before, how do they know it will save them? That's my question. Like, it's the certainty that I'm getting from Gil-galad that like this will save us. It's like you've literally never encountered it before. I guess maybe if it formed a Silmaril and you know the Silmarils are a source of power. Again, the show hasn't explained that to me.
Is someone telling them? The question would be, is someone telling them that they need this?
I wish they'd tell us.
Yeah.
Just tell me.
I do too. Just let us know. Like even if they went and opened a book and say, here's a prophecy that says this, or here's something that's written down that says this, if we see this, it would happen, it would be a good thing, or this, if this happens, it's a bad thing. I get that. I'm on board with that. But this whole, like, you should just know.
Or even if it's a fake reason. Like, this was my issue with, this is my issue with Muriel. And she's like, we hate the elves. And I was like, at least give me a fake reason why. Like, you can reveal the real reason later, but in the meantime, give me a fake reason. So,
and I think they tried, yeah. There's so much that I'm frustrated about because I'm like, no, the reason's there. It's just really, really buried, and you need to expound upon it more. So in the last episode, the reason was, well, they'll take your jobs, and they never sleep, and they're more powerful, and they're
right.
You know. But it was sort of in the background of a street person sort of yelling this, and I agree with you, Trisha. It just needs to be more plainly spelled out and emphasized a little bit more. Some of these issues, right?
One thing we say on my show all the time, which our show is analysis focused, and you know, when we do analysis, we're really just looking at what is there, and not kind of like. We do criticism as well, but mostly we just do analysis. Mm-hmm. And one thing we say a lot is if it's not in the text, it's not in the movie. And I'm dealing with that here. If it's not in the text of the show, it's not in the show. And I sympathize with the plight of the writers because there's so much text and that can't be in the show. Like so much of the mythology in the world kind of can't be in the show. There isn't room for it. And especially when you're juggling literally 5 plot lines. And this was the first episode in a long time that we've had all 5 or 4 or whatever of the storylines jammed in here. But wow,
good point.
I still feel like we
So-
could use a little more.
Could I address a comment I seen go by in the chat, please?
Yes, I was just about to, but John, go for it.
So it's not just it's a couple of people are saying that why do you want it spelled out for you? Are you spoiled? Like no, that's not the case. But when it comes to these type of things, when it comes to a show, especially when you don't know anything about the lore or anything behind it, you're just watching it. There has to be some form of explanation. You can't just say this is just how it is, because most people won't accept that. And it's not. It's in my opinion sloppy and lazy writing. Because it doesn't help people understand the world. Like there's world building involved here. So one of the big things I had about Wheel of Time, one of my major criticisms was there's a whole lot of stuff they just assume people knew when you watch the show. And I spent a lot of time explaining things to people, and that's not how a show should work. Yes, there can be secrets. Yes, there can be things that are ambiguous. Yes, there can be things, but if they're major plot lines, if they're major parts of the story, there should be some clear reason for us to either say, yes, they need to do that, or no, they don't need to do that, because otherwise it doesn't hook the viewers. And to me, I'm not hooked by this storyline at all, because maybe next episode they'll come out and they'll say, this is exactly how it is. And I'll go, oh, maybe I should have just waited a week before I complained a whole lot. But right now, after watching this episode 2 or 3 times, I was like, I don't get it. I don't understand it. And I don't like that I don't understand it. I feel stupid.
Right. Well, let me clarify for folks who are just joining us and folks in the chat. This is a panel of people who are new to the lore. They have not read the books. They're newbies. So we're evaluating this show on its own merit. We're talking about different filmmaking elements, the script. They are not supposed to have context because we want their real and true thoughts on what they're seeing. And these folks are seeing a lot of these characters for the first time. And to me, it's absolutely fascinating to get your takes, and I appreciate you guys, because I think so much of this is frustrating for both newbies and lore people. Even though we love the show, I'm enjoying the show, some of it is frustrating to watch because you wish that they would do a little more explaining. It would only benefit everybody. So I'm totally tracking with you guys. I'm totally agreeing with you. And go ahead, Trisha. You look like.
And I just want to be clear that, again, what I'm trying to dig at here is analysis about what's actually being said and what's actually not being said. And and please don't confuse that with criticism, because people come to media for different experiences.
Right.
If you come to media for exciting action sequences, for gorgeous scenery, for beautiful set design, costume design, for, really compelling sequences and performances, direction, like there might be a lot of other things in this show that eclipse the need to have everything spelled out for you. And if that's the case for you and you're enjoying the show, fantastic. What I'm trying to identify is, again, I'm trying to do some analysis about what is being said and what is not being said in terms of narrative work. And the narrative work is missing some pieces for those of us that don't know what's going on behind the scenes. And even if that's like, hey, it was said in this like offhanded way by this unnamed character, that's still not, the narrative work isn't being done to the satisfaction of the weight that's being placed on it in the story. So that's, I think, what I'm trying to, like, I don't know, pinpoint about what feels confusing. And again, this is not like, therefore the show is trash. I'm not saying that in any 100%. Way. I'm saying in this storyline, I'm missing some narrative puzzle pieces that I wish that I had.
Right. Yeah. And the dwarves and the elves, I think clearly more shall be revealed. Right now, it is definitely confusing. I have to agree with you. And I think there is more to the story. So we'll leave that part right there. Before we have to wrap up, I really want to talk about Bronwyn and in her story, because I felt like that took some interesting turns. And Lottie, I want to get your thoughts on Bronwyn trying to rally her people to fight this dark power that's marching at their gates. Half of them leaving. That was a really heartbreaking turn of events for me. Take it away.
I'm fascinated by her bravery, and because I was really trying to put myself in the shoes of one of the villagers or people who live there.
Mm-hmm.
I would probably neither fight nor go to the orcs. I would probably try to just run away from all of it.
Run away!
So I guess like they have nowhere to go really in the open. They don't have enough food to travel long. I don't know, but I was struggling with the decision, and I think that feels real to have that struggle between should I stay and fight or should I give in and just be concerned about my own safety. And they at least, it's always do the evil people say, okay, if you give us this, we will protect you. You will be fine. If you just listen to what we say and you don't, you'll be fine. But are they actually telling the truth? Because we have seen them wipe out other villages around us. So yeah. So but and then the intriguing part at the end when she is like, we are destined to be evil. I didn't expect that from her at all. So I want to hear what the other two have to say about that, because I was very, very surprised. And for a second, I thought, because the way they stepped out there, I thought they were just making a show to, I don't know, to convince everyone for a second. I had very weird thoughts about the scene of her and Arondir stepping out there and having this conversation in front of everybody all of a sudden. I was like, are they just doing trying to convince everybody through a play here, or I don't know. until I realized, no, she actually means what she's saying. So that was my thoughts on that scene.
Well, I really enjoyed that there's hope and despair all playing out in this. And Katie, it looks like in the chat we have consensus. So Katie says, I like the exploration of hope and despair because that's very Tolkien, but it was very back and forth. I totally agree. This sort of was a lot of melodrama in this scene. As a person who likes melodrama, it really worked for me. But let's go to Trisha. How did you feel about this plot line?
I like it a lot on paper. Need to make a decision. All the villagers need to make a decision that they're more likely to survive if they pledge fealty to Adar. But they are trying not to be like their ancestors, and they want to stand for what's good, whatever that means. But I think I get the external stakes, the life and death of it all. I get that. What I'm missing a little bit from Bronwyn is her journey as like a mother, because she has a son, and she makes her first speech without seemingly any thought about what would happen to Theo if they stay and fight. If Theo is willing to stay and fight with her, or if she feels like they have to stay and fight regardless, then surely she has made her peace with the fact that they will all die, including Theo. And if that is something I feel should be like weighed by the character, like visibly on screen, I think that would be realistic. We haven't seen a lot. I don't think we've seen enough of their relationship. I just kind of wish for more. Bronwyn and Theo, like, what does it mean for you as a parent to be in this position of essentially kind of being a leader in the community? She's a healer, right? We know that about her. She's not a warlike person, you wouldn't think. But obviously she's really tough. We saw her behead an orc. So I just am wondering, it seems like learning that Theo has the hilt, and Adar knows that Theo has the hilt, so she will not be able to get Theo out of this alive if they fight. Right. Seemed like a really motivating factor for her in deciding to give up. But
so
was she thinking
to
Theo
survive?
Right, but was she already thinking Theo could live? Because that doesn't make a ton of sense. Like, where was Theo in her first decision-making process? Yeah. And when she made the decision to fight, where was Theo in that decision? When she made the decision to turn, Theo seemed to be present there. So I just am kind of missing this, like, if your goal is to keep your son alive no matter the cost, then even if that's at the cost of something you believe in, then I wish I had seen that earlier. I don't know. I think there's like an interesting kind of missing piece there about how all of these things are playing into Bronwyn's decision making.
I like Bronwyn a lot.
Still doesn't have any sleeves.
Trisha, now that you said that, I told my co-host on our podcast, that's all I can think about now.
It's all I
Oh,
see.
she does look cold.
Doesn't she? Give her a coat, give her a shawl. I don't know.
I do.
To
like
me,
her
she
character.
feels.
Yeah. Go ahead.
To me, she
John.
feels like someone in the Lord of the Rings writers' room was a Wheel of Time fan, because she's Nynaeve 2.0 to me. If you're familiar with Wheel of Time books, that's Bronwyn is that character right now. That's who she is. And like Trisha said, I don't get her motivations. I don't at all. She's a mother, but she seems like kind of a crappy mother. I'm not going to lie to you. It kind of seems that way. It doesn't seem like she cares too much about Theo right now. She's more concerned about other things that are going on. It also seems like she doesn't know if she wants what she should do, which that's totally fair. I mean, someone who has not had to make those kind of decisions before, of course they're going to kind of waffle in 180 a lot. That seemed believable to me, but I think my problem with her storyline and characters, we haven't seen enough of it. There's not enough character development for me to get, this is why she's making these decisions. This is why she's doing this. This is her relationship with her son. This is her relationship with the rest of the townsfolk. There's a little bit of that. There's snippets of it, but to me, there's not quite enough for me to go, I know why she's doing this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was too quick of a transition between here's my rallying cry and then like, well, there's no hope. Let's
Never mind
pack it
that,
up.
yeah.
Pack it in. That's all I got.
Yeah,
One
we're
rousing
done.
speech was all I got. But it clearly, it did not go well for the folks who decided to surrender to Adar. If someone can drop it, Waldrig. I was going to say someone in the chat remind me of his name, but it just came to me. Waldrig, I think, surrendering to Adar. I thought that was a very interesting scene where he's asked to slit the throat of this young person who's in his camp. Does he do it? Does he not do it? It was one of those cliffhanger moments. And we don't know. The question that came out of that scene also was, why did saying the word Sauron, calling him Sauron, why did that trigger Adar so much? Why was he so angry? So that's one of the other questions that we got out of that scene. Lottie, you look like you're chomping at the bit a little bit.
Absolutely. That's the mystery. Now I'm confused because I think last time I said he's definitely not. I don't think he's Sauron. But the show is going back and forth so well. It reminds me a little bit, since we have John here, it reminds me a little bit of the Search of the Dragon. And then in the end, I don't want to, it is, the person.
Well, you can spoil another show, just not this show.
Right. It is. I mean, in the end, it is the person you always kind of thought it would be. So now I'm going back and forth. Now we're being led away from the, that he doesn't want to be called Sauron. So now I don't know if he is going to become him. It's like, it was, again, confusing for me. And I was shocked that I kind of thought he did, but we had never actually saw it. So we don't know yet. I thought he did kill the boy, but yeah, you're right. We never saw the action happen. So
I had the feeling he did, but yeah, the cliffhanger for sure.
Good. Yeah. And I wonder what the other people are thinking now. Are they regretting their decision? Do they want to get out of there? And then we see the orcs march towards Osterith, right? And then no, the tower. They march towards the tower. But do the other humans march with them, or are they just now they're? Do they work for them?
Or are they in their bellies?
Yeah. So
a lot of questions. I want to get quick predictions before we end this panel and hand it over to our fantastic lore panel. They're going to go deep into the lore. If you're just joining us and you want to hear analysis and you want to hear exploration of the wider Tolkien canon, please stick around. Panel 2 is coming right up. But I'd love to get predictions on any one of the plot lines from you guys. So let's start with John. Any predictions for the show?
If I had to predict, I don't go with a plot line, but I want to go character. So who the stranger is. I think the stranger's a Balrog. To me, fire doesn't hurt him. He's bad. Not good. Whatever. That's my. I know a whole lot of people think he's one of the wizards, but I think he's a Balrog, and I think who Sauron is right now. And I want to go really outlandish with this. I think he's the Chancellor from Numenor. That's my take on that. But I don't know for sure who anyone is, and it's going to be a secret right till the very end, as far as I'm concerned. But that's what I would think would be a really good plot twist, that this kid's dad is not really his dad anymore. He's been replaced, and that's why this is all going on. But
I like it. We got some spicy takes there. A Balrog would certainly be a twist. We'll go to Trisha.
Oh gosh. Let's see. Well, I do predict one thing, which is that we're gonna get a split of the Númenórean characters. We're going to follow Halbrand and Galadriel and all of those guys as they go to Middle Earth. And we're going to end up staying around with Pharazôn and Kemen and Isildur's sister, whose name I can never remember and seems a little complicated to say. They're going to be around in Miriel. We're going to be hanging around with them in Númenor at least a little bit, which means we're going to have yet another plot line that needs to be intercut with everything else. I'm so tired. And let's see. We're also probably going to get more, I don't know, just hopefully a few more beats with the Harfoots. And we're going to see where the distrust goes, if there is indeed like a seed of distrust being planted between Nori and the stranger, and what that might lead to. I think I'm very curious about how that'll go if Nori starts to wonder if she has done something wrong in bringing him into the Harfoots community. And obviously there's going to be still predicting a betrayal between the elves and the dwarves. Something real bad is going to happen there with the Mithril and stuff. So these are sort of big picture.
You got a lot of predictions.
I think these are going to be things that happen in this season. I don't know if we're going to find out who Sauron is in this season, which makes me sad to say, because I would like to know, because I'm not sure. I'm not going to watch all the following seasons from here on in. I don't know if I'm back on a panel. Maybe I will. But
we might have to have you back. So
we'll see.
You might have to.
That's the surest way to get me to watch anything, is if I have to podcast about it. But no, I really have enjoyed watching the show. I'm not saying that at all. But anyway, I think they're going to save some stuff. So I think things we're going to get in this season are going to be payoffs to the immediate plot lines that are already seated here. Things that are maybe not going to get resolved are some of the show's biggest reveals. I think it would behoove the writers to save one or two of those for the next season, or to tease the reveal of those things in the next season. It would make sense from a meta producerial point of view to do that.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It can't all be the mystery box, right? No,
yeah.
We don't want too many.
You got to answer some questions before you ask more. I mean, we all learned that from
correct. That's right. All righty, Lottie.
I feel like we're really going to pick up the pace next episode, because we saw a little mini trailer at the end, right, where Galadriel and is it Halbrand? They're already riding on their horses, and it looks like they're ready to go to war. And I mean, the Southlanders still, they have to defend themselves. The orcs are right at them, coming right for them. And I think next episode is going to be a lot more action. And I think it's interesting, John, that you see Pharazôn. He might be Sauron. I don't think he's gonna be Sauron, but I think he definitely has some darker. Like, I don't trust him at all.
He betrayed Galadriel. We know that.
Heck no.
Yeah.
There's something wrong there for sure.
Oh yeah,
definitely, yeah.
He's a little slithery, a little bit.
Oh yeah. But what I want to see is that the stranger and Nori, that maybe Poppy too, that they're going to go on a quest and help the stranger figure out who he is. I feel like they're going to at some point separate from all the other Harfoots. That's what I don't know. I'm kind of hoping that's going to happen.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there's still quite a bit left. These episodes are long and a lot can happen. So I want to thank you, wonderful panelists, you newbies. You are great. I enjoy every week so much talking to you. Thank you for your time. We are going to hand it over now to our lore panel. We've got a really, really exciting guest coming up who's on the lore panel. I'm going to let Michael introduce him. So thank you to you all again. This is where we leave you. Thanks to all the viewers for tuning in. The super chat was lit. Love to see it, even though I was distracted. It was great. But we will see you all next week for another newbie panel. And thank you all for tuning in. I'm going to do my best not to spoil things next time. I think I accidentally leaked a couple things. I'm gonna do my best not to do that again. I'm getting reprimanded. So alrighty, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. And here we go. Michael, take it away.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I'm actually taking over the stream as we get some folks to drop out and then get some other folks to join in. Alan, how's it going, man?
It's going all right. You didn't tell me that I needed to bring a beard.
I think you're already growing a pretty spectacular one. I am not
2
Kyle,
millimeters. Thank you.
who does all the great behind the scenes stuff for us. So there's
All
not
right.
going to be any smooth transition. We are live right now, just
All
waiting
right.
for the other
Hello,
panelists to
everyone.
hop in.
Good. Do we know who else is joining us today?
I do. I'm going to wait for.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't want to spoil it.
I don't even know who's joining us today. See, otherwise I would spoil it, because that's just what I do.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a bad thing to do. People do enjoy spoilers. Let's go ahead and get another person up here. Strider, you looks like your camera's not on yet.
Hello. Are you hearing me?
I can hear you fine, Strider. Laketia, how are you?
Hi, how's it going, everybody?
I am good. Trying to get Michael into the stream, but I don't see his name pop up yet.
I think.
All right, I think we're all in.
We need one more.
Oh, the host. Okay, well, details.
I actually closed the stream, so are we on air?
Yeah, we are. Hello to everyone.
Hi, everybody.
Is my audio okay?
I can hear you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Well, hello, Alan. It's awesome to have you here with us.
Oh, it's good to be here.
Yeah, indeed.
And I am a faceless man, apparently. If you can hear me. All right, it wouldn't be live TV if there were a few.
We can't handle your beauty.
Yeah, there you go.
That's an explanation I can get behind. Yeah.
Well, it's either that or faces for radio. Which do you prefer?
Both is good.
That's why we started a podcast, my friend.
All right, let me try this one more time. I'm going to leave and rejoin because I don't want to deprive the masses with my beautiful mug.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, we need a balance with the perfect haircuts here.
It was a very lovely panel. I don't know if you guys tuned in to the previous panel.
The previous one I did.
Yeah.
Absolutely lovely chat. So good to hear what everybody's thinking. The pure innocent souls who haven't yet been spoiled by the majesty that is Tolkien.
Yeah, I guess it hurts less for them, maybe, some things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely true. I think
You know, like My Sweet Summer Child and all that. That's
yeah.
very on point.
Yeah.
I'm afraid the second part of the panel might be a little bit more negative on certain issues, but you know.
On some issues more than others, I think.
Mhm. Oh,
I'm
yeah,
assuming
this is
we're
gonna
talking
be
about Mithranium then, right? Is that where you're?
Yeah, I've heard it.
That's the
done-
word.
I've
That's
heard
the
it
word.
done as mithril, being a drug to the elves, and my own analog to it would be, you know, that it's hi Michael, that it's you know, all the elves are suddenly diabetic, and apparently mithril is their insulin.
I was actually imagining it a little bit more hardcore than that. You know, a little bit more having to go to their dealer for their latest hit of mithril, because God knows they got to bathe in the light of the Valor every so often. By spring.
Yeah, maybe we should
Yeah,
get
no
to it
less.
when
Anyway,
we get
let's
to
get
it.
there.
But yeah.
Yeah.
Look,
Yeah,
Sorry.
look what
there.
happens. I can't keep you under control for 1 second, and we're talking about drug dealers and mithril. We're already off the rails. All right, I switched my camera. I'm now looks like I'm bathed in the light of the Valar. I have my Instagram filter on or something.
That's awesome.
We will roll with it.
Yeah.
Okay, so just real briefly, I want to thank a couple people who help us out this week. Everyone knows that we are tweeting out food recipes and drink recipes to people who are following us on Twitter, so everybody can kind of have fun eating the same thing and drinking the same thing while they watch the show. This week's recipes came from Chris Rachel Osland, who's author of An Unexpected Cookbook, and she gave us a full menu of very kind of traditional English fare. It was actually, she called it the one cheat meal to rule them all. It was designed to follow the sort of wartime rationing that Tolkien would have been familiar with during certain periods of his life. So we want to thank her for that. We were going to have her on the stream this week to talk about it, because she does a lot of research into Tolkien. Was very particular about the foods that he allowed to be referenced in his writings, and so she's going to talk about that. We will have her on next week to do that, because she's providing us with another menu as well. So tune in next week for that. Our drink came from Liquor and Lore, the Mithril Elixir, very aptly named, as it turned out. We did not know that in advance, but you know, it turned out to be right on point.
Foreshadowing and all that.
Yes, yeah. Maybe they know something we don't. Every week on Saturday, we do a little trivia question on Twitter, and we give away a great little shirt that says Eldar Millennial on it to the winner. Our trivia this week was, how many elves carried away Gil-galad's stone table, and how did they carry it? The answer is 6, with ropes slung over their shoulder. Our winner this week is European Royalty Fan at Europe Royals Fan on Twitter. So we're going to be sending out a shirt to you. We'll get in touch with you after the stream. So thanks for participating. And there was one answer I want to kind of give an honorable mention to. They answered correctly that there were 6 people carrying the stone table. They also reminded us that they were carrying that stone table for 600 miles. I didn't check the map, but Linden is not that close to Khazad-dûm.
Yeah, but also the fact that Durin and Elrond are like, okay, pack your feathery shirts, let's start walking. You know, it's like they not a carriage, no horses. Yeah, the show treats distances in a very idiosyncratic way, let's say.
Yeah, one of the beefs with this season for sure.
Yeah, I think we'll get to that when we get to it, because there is one sequence in this particular episode that defies that trend, and it's actually a very good sequence and a very good opening. So yeah.
The actual secret is that this show is in fact a Lord of the Rings and Star Trek crossover, so they are just teleporting.
You know, you may be more right than you know, because these showrunners wrote a Star Trek script, didn't they?
Yes, they did.
They did.
Yeah, and I suppose you could construe the arguments that part of this feel a little Star Trek-y in some senses. I wouldn't know. I've never seen Star Trek to save my life, by the way. So,
if anyone's interested in playing a combination of Star Trek and the Lord of the Rings, try D&D Spelljammer setting. It's literally right that thing. Fantasy plus Star Trek.
Well, the last thing I want to announce before we talk more about Star Trek, which this stream is now devoted to.
It's why we gathered, yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're here about James Tiberius Kirk and not Elrond. Yeah.
Exactly.
Each week we would like to feature an artist. This week's featured artist is Kip Rasmussen, who has generously donated 2 items, which we're raffling off during the stream today. The winner of the raffle can go to his store and pick out any prints, and any 2 prints and he will mail them out to you after the stream is over. To participate in that raffle, you just throw us a super chat. We'll interact with the super chat as we normally would. For each $1 you super chat, it's going to be one raffle ticket, and we'll announce the winner at the end. Kip's work is absolutely fantastic. He just a little bit about Kip. He had a whole other career before giving it up and becoming an illustrator. He was a family therapist. He went to college. He did all this stuff. But when he reread the Silmarillion as an adult and rekindled his love of Tolkien, and he was compelled to find ways to work in that world and to illustrate some of the scenes that touched his heart. And so a lot of his art focuses on scenes from the Silmarillion in particular. There's plenty of stuff from Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit as well. But you'll find a lot of great scenes from the Silmarillion represented in his work if you go to his website. Some of the highlights of his career included being featured in the special features of Peter Jackson's Desolation of Smaug DVD, and he's got 2 images included in the official 2023 Tolkien calendar. So big thank you to Kip, and he's also generously created a discount code for everybody here. Fellowship 30 gets you 30% off at his store. So please patronize him. He's a wonderful artist. And you should always be finding ways to patronize Tolkien artists. Yes. Without further ado, let's get into the panel and introduce everyone. We've got Lakitia again. How are you?
Hi, really good to be back. And I just want to say I have an important message for everybody. Everybody's been celebrating the Hobbit Day this week. I haven't, however, seen many people celebrating the Thinking Fogs Day this week, which is the 23rd of September. So, as you go to bed tonight, please spare a thought for the Thinking Fogs, the most important character in the whole Legendarium. Thank you.
Wonderful. Strider is back again.
Yeah, hello. I'm very excited to be discussing the new Star Trek timeline versus the old Star Trek timeline, so I cannot wait to delve more into that.
And we've got Hen rejoining us for the first time since our first stream. How are you doing?
Indeed, yeah, fine. Just like it's Happy Hobbit Day, it's Happy Jewish New Year's. So,
That's right. That's right. And our special guest today, I'm particularly excited about, is Alan Sisto from the Prancing Pony podcast and Rings of Power wrap-up. Welcome, Alan.
Thank you very much for having me, Michael. I'm really looking forward to being here today. It's should be a lot of fun.
The introduction would not be complete if I did not mention that for over 6 years and 5 million downloads, Alan and his co-host John Marchese walk their way through Tolkien's Legendarium from the Silmarillion to the Hobbit. And this season, the podcast is starting Return of the King. Some say the PPP is the finest Tolkien podcast this side.
Good Lord.
As you can tell, I tune in.
You do. I'm apparently you tune in quite well. No, it's been quite a ride. I mean, Sean and I have had an amazing 6+ years. We've loved it. It's been an amazing journey. And with Sean gone, it's a little bit of a change now. But when you've got people like Corey Olson and James Tauber and Matt from Nerd of the Rings joining in to co-host entire chapters with me, I can't complain. It's like an all-star lineup of the Tolkien community. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
And the Rings of Power wrap-up episodes that you've been doing for the show have all been excellent so far. I've enjoyed those.
Thank you. They've been very, very short. I feel like we could probably go 3 hours each, but then my editor would kill me, and we would get the episodes out like a week later. So.
I don't think Jordan has it in him to kill anybody, but he is a true.
No, that's true. He's a very gentle soul. Good guy.
Well, we've got a full panel today, so let's get right to it. We like to start our panels with just sort of a round table, giving your high-level thoughts. And the way we do that is I've asked everybody to pick one word or short phrase that describes their feelings about the episode. So let's go ahead and start with the man of the West, Alan Sisto.
Confusticated and bebothered. To borrow a Tolkien phrase. Yeah, I mean, nice. I'm supposed to explain why I say that, correct? Or do I just leave it at that?
You can explain why. We will get into, of course, the mithril issue later on.
I wasn't sure if maybe I needed to leave it that way and let the mystery box kind of reveal itself over the next 3 episodes.
No, we have enough of that. So at the moment, please
have enough time for that.
Explain away.
Clearly, it is a little bit. It's not so much the origin story of mithril itself. I mean, okay. It's interesting. Plus 10 points for giving us an origin story of a material that Tolkien never bothered to give us an origin story for. But minus 5 million points for making it required for the elves' pansy-ass souls to survive through the spring.
Yeah, they need to sunbathe in it, I think. Right?
I know. And of course, I'm going to let it go because I'm enjoying the show in so many other ways. But that particular moment did sort of make my eyes roll audibly. But we'll get some more of that. But that's where I'm at, confusticated and bebothered for the moment.
Let's go to Hen.
I was gonna say something like that. I was gonna say confused because not confusticated, but certainly confused because I'm in a dilemma with this particular episode because I feel like editing wise and in terms of most of the storylines, it's a better episode than the last one. I think even much more. The opening is a lot stronger. By which I mean it's simpler, but it's like more confident. Like we don't need a big crashing wave to get people hooked into this. We can just have a conversation between two people over tea, and it's there's something nice about it. And then, as we were alluding to earlier, there's a travel montage. Finally, it looks very pleasing. It's and everything, like it's also the one episode that had all the storylines in it, and yet the editing worked. It played well, like mostly played quite well. Like everything had a chance to breathe, things played out, like it was all very pleasing. There were good scenes too, scenes between Galadriel and Halbrand, wonderful, great choices. Put the camera in their face, the reddish lighting, the acting, it's all very good. And then at the 33-minute mark, Gilgalad pulls the moment he said recite to me the song of the roots of Hithyglir, I knew I was in trouble. Now, I didn't roll my eyes like you did, Ellen. What I did was I watched it very early in the morning, and I was like, oh, wow, that's weird. And then as I'm thinking about it, plus I always watch these things twice if I'm going to analyze them, but certainly as I was thinking about it and explaining it to other people, I was like, wait a minute, it's a little bit more than just weird. That's a plot, and it's one that we had no idea about prior to this. We had no warning, nothing about it at all.
Yeah, no clues
so
or
it was
hints.
like, what? Like what the hell? And so late in the game too to pull something like that. It's wow.
Let's go to
Is it my turn? Okay,
Okay. Okay, I'm gonna cheat a little bit. My word is gonna be partings, which is also the title of the episode. And I felt like this was a very, very suitable title for this particular episode because obviously there are many departures and partings within the show. Numenorians leave. We have Elrond and Durin leave Linden for Casa Doom, and also it fits the show's parting from the lore quite well. So yeah, that was the
Thank you. I was waiting when you say that. Thank you.
That was the main thing. So I thought maybe that was like a little inside joke. I don't think it was. It would have been very, very cheeky on the showrunner's part if it had been. But I felt that it described what we were getting much more than we anticipated once we learned what the title was. So that's my word.
Yeah, that's fair.
Strider, how about you?
Well, I was gonna do like quote unquote sigh, but I'll just say hot and cold maybe, because as good folks already said, like the first half of the episode was maybe even my favorite 30 minutes. I think it was. I really actually enjoyed like the first half of the episode. I really liked. The Harfoots were absolutely fantastic for most of the time. Like it was 9 out of 10 for them, and for the general first half of the season of the episode. And then we come to the dinner, the long-awaited dinner, and so we touched on Mithril. I'll just say we already covered that. I will cover it more in depth later. But for me, I also became kind of disillusioned with some of the like the scope of things, specifically regarding Numenor. I really wasn't happy with how the sets and the size, like the whole scene with the army and so on. I wasn't happy with the scale of it, and it's becoming a more and more one of my beefs with the show so far. So hot and cold, amazing stuff in the first half. Second half for few reasons. But I guess we'll get more into that soon.
Well, let's get into that right now because I knew that if we went through this in a chronological order, you all would be just dying. It would just circle back to Mithril at some point. So we got to address this topic right at the start. So let me set this up a little bit. In the show, after a tense dinner where Gil-galad and Durin put on a real show with each other, Gil-galad and Elrond have a private. What was that, Ken?
Do they though? Because that's one of my issues with Gil-galad and with Benjamin Walker, that he's acting, but he's acting in the kind. He's acting
we'll
the
get
kind
into
of.
that.
Can let the man finish his intro, please.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mike.
That is the first of 100 sentences, so bear with me.
I'm on a lot of red wine.
Yeah. It'll help with this topic, I promise.
Yeah.
But Gil-galad and Elrond have a private conversation that starts out with, I think it's worth mentioning, with each accusing the other of lying. Because it turns out that Gil-galad already knew about the Mithril. Elrond then recounts the song of the roots of Hithyglir, which Elrond dismisses as an obscure legend regarded by most to be apocryphal, thus putting into question whether or not it is the truth within the show or merely a myth that they believe because of some gaps in their knowledge about the fate of the Silmarils and the actual origins of Mithril. This obscure legend says that there was a great battle on the tops of the Misty Mountains where a Balrog pours his evil into destroying a tree and an elf pours his good into saving the tree. A little clumsy, but visually very stunning. And as a result of that battle, the tree and the light of the Silmaril, which is apparently trapped in the tree, gets sort of seeps into the mountain, infusing it with an ore that Gil-galad says is, quote, a power as pure and light as good and as strong and unyielding as evil. Interesting that Gil-galad would reference qualities of evil as something to be obtained.
Yeah, that was anyway, go ahead, sorry.
After recounting this legend, I know there's
It's a doozy.
once I get this out, I'm going to let you all run with it. After recounting the legend, Gil-galad shows Elrond that the ceremonial tree we saw in episode 1 is in fact rotting and says that the light of the Eldar is fading, which Elrond later explains to Durin means that their immortal souls will dwindle into nothing. Celebrimbor also later clarifies that he knew about the Mithril and that the elves' only salvation to save themselves from fading is if they get enough Mithril to saturate every elf in the light of the Valar once more. Gil-galad asks Elrond to break his oath to Durin in the hope that Mithril will save the elves. Elrond says he won't break his oath because he believes his soul is bound up in it, and he won't let it slip away on mere hope, which Gil-galad then chides him and says, hope is never mere, Elrond, even when it is meager, thus placing the Tolkienian themes of oath-keeping and hope in conflict with each other within these elvish characters. So the Song of Hithyglir is a creation of the show. In the text, we do not know about Mithril's origins, and in fact, we know it had been discovered and used in the First Age. The Unfinished Tales tell us that Mithril was found in Numenor. We know from the Song of Eärendil that the ship Vingalot was made from elven glass and Mithril, meaning that it must also be located in Valinor. Further, the Silmarillion tells us that the fate of the two Silmarils, seized by Maglor and Maedhros, they were thrown into the ocean and into a volcanic chasm, not bound up in a tree that became part of the mountain. Meaning that either the Song of Hithyglir, if treated in the show as true, is directly contrary to the lore, or it is indeed an apocryphal myth that Gil-galad only believes because at this point in history they don't yet know the true fate of the Silmarils, and perhaps he's being invited by someone to believe the myth.
Yes.
With that long preamble, here is my question for the panel. The Mithril subplot touches on the fundamental essence of the elves. It is narratively being tied to what we are learning is the elves' primary motivation in the show as well, which is to stop their fading into nothingness. So it is clearly very important. And the facts, as we just described, the facts of the Mithril subplot is inconsistent with, or at least potentially inconsistent with, events in the lore. So setting the inconsistency of the facts, the lore facts aside, is it thematically inconsistent with, to use a phrase that the professor used, the core of the original?
Or the original. I'm glad you went there. That's exactly, I think, the thing we need to look at, because it does forgive broad deviations if they're not specific to those thematic cores. But I think if you're actually done with your summary, and I feel like you are, but I want to ask because I have a tendency. Okay, that's where I'm going to differ and say, okay, it's not so much the Mithril legend itself, because it's another one of these some say moments. It's totally fine that it's a myth. We know that does conflict with the lore, so I'm going to assume that it's a falsehood, that Gil-galad is buying into this because he's being convinced by somebody else, behind the scenes. But the problem is this notion of the elves fading being dependent upon that. That's where I think I struggle the most. And with the lying, I mean, that's the one thing that Tolkien really, really, lying was never something that the good people did. Gil-galad never was manipulative and lying in order to trick other people to do things like Elrond to go find out about the Mithril. So I think that's where we're dealing with a core of the original issue. The myth, I mean, at least visually it was spectacular. I loved seeing a Balrog. I loved seeing the wings being very shadowy and not actually substantial. My own little pet peeve. I loved the graphics of it and the way the story was told, and I certainly don't have a problem with it as being one of those some say deals. But I do think thematically the idea of elves' immortality, which look, we know that they are tied to the existence of Arda, and I think that's one of the big things that we're missing when we come up against that theme about them needing the light of Mithril or the light of the Silmaril in order to stop that fading.
Yeah, I don't think it's really like the whole apocryphal thing. I think it's just there to give it flavor rather than us really buying into the idea that it's just a legend, because there are several exchanges of looks between Elrond and Gil-galad as he's recounting it, which I like. Is like, oh, they say that the light of the last Silmaril is in it, and Gil-galad gives him a look of like, yeah, they sure say that, don't they? Like, the exchanges of looks are such to communicate to us that this is real, that it's not apocryphal as Elrond says, it's the real deal, and so much of the plot hangs on it, and it's described in such detail and dramatized as well, that for it to be a lie, if audiences really, really, really hate it, maybe the showrunners can backpedal out of it and say that it was a lie all along, but it doesn't feel right. It feels genuine.
That actually is the thing that I think. I'm not so sure about backpedaling. I'm wondering if this is actually planned. My secret hope is that Gil-galad is tied up someplace in a cave, the real Gil-galad, and that this is actually Sauron dressed as Gil-galad, planting these lies and trying to start this this conflict between the elves and dwarves. That's about the only way they can save this particular storyline and still be true to who Gil-galad is. But I rather suspect they won't go that far.
Yeah, and that's another thing too, that this idea, like explaining it, takes a while. Like, it's 3 scenes spread across the edit of Elrond recounting it to Gil-galad, Gil-galad showing him the tree, Elrond talking to Celebrimbor, and then Elrond explaining the situation to Durin. So it's a big part of the episode. So it's not just like this little nugget in the middle of the episode that, like, it's a big Megillah, like.
I think
we saw on the newbie panel that the newbies were totally confused. Like,
it's confusing. That's the other thing for me specifically, which is, even if I didn't know a word of Tolkien, I would have thought, if I were watching it, I would have thought it's confusing, silly as hell, and those sorts of things, demystifying as well, because I don't really need to know how Mithril came into being. Like, that's not those kinds of questions the answers can only be disappointing. Only, like, they can, it's just, you can't depict the undepictable.
I think I have several a bit unrelated thoughts in this regard. My first reaction was probably just, I don't know, I was just really surprised, and it felt so unnecessary.
Yes.
There's several elements that bothered me here besides the obvious what is even going on, the general question that's overseeing everything. I really didn't like them presenting Gil-galad as this sort of lying, manipulating politician, which is also something that he mentioned in interviews, that Gil-galad was going to be this more politically savvy statesman, something like that. But the way they presented it in interviews was very benevolent. They said that he really wants to help others be better and do better, etc. Here it just seemed, I don't know, very sneaky, very insincere to Elrond, who seems to be one of his closest colleagues. So I really didn't appreciate that. I also want to address something that you guys said earlier, that perhaps this is Gil-galad who could be potentially influenced by rumors originating in Sauron. And now I know that this is not Sauron directly speaking into his ear, not him being directly manipulated. But given that, his resistance to Sauron's charms were pretty firm. Him and Elrond didn't trust him at all. They refused his entry into Lindon. So him being in any way influenced by him that much just doesn't sit that well with me. I really
It would have to
found
be indirect, right, through Celebrimbor.
absolutely, but still, I feel like he just Sauron's vibe wasn't something that that influence wasn't something he felt under. So him being influenced in any way, just I don't know, it feels wrong to me. You can use other people. I mean, you could have Celebrimbor be much more active participant in this whole situation, and perhaps Gil-galad being a little bit reluctant, but no, they went the other way. And I also found it really the whole situation was super convoluted to me, especially the spring deadline. I mean,
Oh yeah, we didn't
how
talk
would they
about
know
that.
that?
The
Is it
rush,
like
I know.
the rush? Was it like, I don't know, a mobile phone calendar notification popping up? You have 6 months. That just seemed really weird. And I'm gonna also have to. Just a short one, and then I'm done. I also have to say, and I think probably most people are going to disagree with me on that, but I didn't find the sequence pretty at all. I found it way too bright, way too saturated. For me, it looked very, very video gamey, and this is not what I associate with mythical. So the whole situation, the whole sequence just made the worst impression on me.
To me, visually, it looked like, oh, someone on this team watched Deathly Hallows Part 1 a while ago. And
I wish it were more like the Deathly Hallows.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Legend.
It worked well for that movie. Here,
Yeah.
I think that would be a good.
Sorry.
Okay, Alan, if you want to, and then
I just wanted to comment on one thing real quick, and then obviously it's your turn. I just wanted to comment real quickly on the idea that Gil-galad wasn't seduced, but Celebrimbor was, and things. I think this is a result of the showrunners condensing the elves. It goes back to the idea of the Sylvan elves responding. Like when the Watchtower gets shut down, like the High King has shut us down. Really, you guys are Sylvan elves. You don't answer to Gil-galad. They've seriously, the elves are just elves. There's no longer like the Linden elves, the Eregion elves, and the Wood elves, and Galadriel and Celeborn. So I just kind of it's the condensation that leads to that, I think. But anyway,
it may just be Elrond that is the one who is taken in.
Because he's the hero character, right? He's got to be the one who doesn't. So.
We don't have an actual villain in this part of the story, so we need a villainous figure, which is at the moment Gil-galad, basically.
I do agree. Just a short reply to Alan, sorry, and then I'll let you go, Strider. I just want to say that I understand and I agree with that, but on the other hand, we have very, very little in terms of characterization of most of these characters in the lore, right?
You're right.
So I would really wish for them to, stuck with what little we have.
It would have been nice.
It would have been really nice. It would have been really welcome, and it would have even helped them in a way. I know for dramatic purposes, they obviously want the story to go certain directions, so they need certain characters to behave in any given way. But I feel like they could have avoided that, and they could have done it more elegantly. That's all. Strider, on to you.
Okay, well, first I want to say that I'm like 50-50 on the legend scene, because I think it was a bit too gamey or something, but I didn't mind overall because it was relatively short. I minded the whole thing connected to it, but I think maybe it would be more effective if they did something like the beginning of the Lord of the Rings, the cartoon. It has like a really nice intro as well, like the prologue of the War of the Last Alliance and so on, like just the shadows on a red background or something like that. But anyway, my biggest problem is actually Alan put it very well, because like we know that obviously elves, their souls are like more like their bodies get tired, especially in Middle Earth, and that's why they want to go to Valinor, because it's like it works in a different way because the Valar are there and so on. And that's actually the effect that the rings will have, like when the Fellowship goes to Lothlorien, time goes by differently, and the rings of the elves are used for a specific purpose to preserve what elves have, like to preserve their realms, and that's why they're so special. And it plays very well. And it's cool that we got some sort of mithril origin in theory, but to put those two things together makes absolutely. It was. I wasn't even angry. I was disappointed. Like as our friend our friend Penguin said when we were discussing this after I watched the show. It's like, a parent to a kid. I'm not even angry. I'm just disappointed. Why did you do this? Like there was no need to do that, because you can make this work. The motive for like obviously, apparently they're aiming for a reason why elves want to stay in Middle Earth and what's like their whole purpose and whatever. And why don't they just leave to Valinor? So I think it much easier would have been to say, we've been here for the last, depending on the timeline, 1,500 years, 2,000 years, whatever they want to say. We have built kingdoms. As the Noldor, we feel responsible for all the. I was going to say a word. All the stuff that happened in the first age. It was kind of our fault in some ways. So we want to stay here. Gil-galad, the High King of the Noldor. I think it's our responsibility to stay here to help mend the wounds and so on. So that could and we have a problem that this tree is. We have a problem that what's happening to the tree and all that, and then maybe that's the motivation that leads to the Rings of Power, which it will go to, but they didn't have to put that whole mithril need for elven saturation in the middle of the whole problem. No,
my solution.
And the 6 months, deadline, like no. And what I was going to say is, I saw on Reddit somebody say. Arondir is going to be very confused when he starts randomly dying in like 6 months from now.
Galadriel, absolutely.
I'm just gonna disappear,
Yeah, my way, you disappointed. My way to look at plot points like this is, it's funny to me. Like we're all laughing off of it here, but those kinds of plot points, I just look at them and I choose to look at it as being funny. That's a much better way to deal with this sort of thing.
Well, since everybody seems to be in agreement here, I feel compelled to play devil's advocate a little bit and present a potentially different, perspective. I think there is a version of this, a way that they could do it that ends up being something that I actually could really like. I might be grasping at straws, but this is the devil's advocate section. Okay,
please, we need that.
There is that line where Elrond says the myth is apocryphal, and maybe it is a throwaway for color, but let's give them some credit and say that it's not a wasted line, that it is purposeful. I like the idea that in this universe, the elves don't have perfect knowledge about themselves, about the fate of the Silmarils, right? And I think that is consistent with the idea, if you look at the Silmarillion as a frame narrative that's written at the conclusion of history, it doesn't necessarily mean that everybody at every point in that history knows everything about everything. Even though elves are certainly very knowledgeable, the Maedhros and MacLeod destroyed the Silmarils or cast them away, presumably alone, without any witnesses. So the elves, I think it's realistic to create a world in which the elves don't know the fate of the Silmarils, and that in that universe, they would create myths to explain the fate of the two lost Silmarils. And I can also accept the idea that maybe they don't fully understand the relationship of their bodies to the universe. We understand it. We've read about their Hroa, and we know all that because the professor told us. But that doesn't mean that all the elves have to know with perfect knowledge. So, and we also know that they do have a genuine fear about, like, they do experience a fading, and the reason that they create the Rings of Power is because they wanted to preserve that fear.
I think that's the long game here. I think
that's where they're going. Absolutely.
More in long term, but
So if the myth is indeed apocryphal and not true within the universe, I don't want it to be true because I have the exact same reactions to all of you did. If it's not true and indeed apocryphal, and maybe it is something that Sauron is manipulating. He is manipulating their fears in order to give them a means to master it, so he can master them, right? So he is playing off of this myth that he knows exists, maybe feeding them a perverted version of the truth about their natures, right? To get them to impose this artificial deadline of 6 months, and to believe that the mithril is indeed infused with the light of Valinor, so that they can preserve themselves from fading. If that's the direction they go with it, I think I would actually really enjoy that. But it remains to be seen whether they will.
There are nice things.
Excellent
there are
points,
nice,
absolutely.
There are nice ideas in this. I agree that the idea that there are myths, true or false, within the context of this world is always nice. The situation that it puts Elrond in the scenes is very nice. Like the conflict inside Elrond is very nice, and I have to admire what Robert A. Romero does with it, because it has a feeling very much of, oh wow, oh, we're really going with this. Okay, I'm gonna try and make these lines like you watch the scene and you're like, wow, you really tried to make it sound like something people say. Like it's very like good for you. Like it's very admirable job.
Yeah. I hear what you're saying, Mike, and I'm in agreement. I think this is their end game. But I wish it wasn't. I think they're trying to help the audiences explain how come the rings came to be in the first place, how come Celebrimbor was so, eager to learn from Anatar and to create the rings of power in the first place. But I think the other possible explanations would be more interesting. I would much prefer, because they said in various interviews that Celebrimbor is going to be this interesting character with lots of ambition, with desire to live up to the family name and everything. So I would much rather they leaned more in the psychological aspect of his reasons for creating the rings, rather than, oh my gosh, we're all gonna die unless we find this one magical solution, this Deus Ex Machina falling from the sky.
Yes.
So
It's just a very literal way of doing the elves fading, like super literal, super like
literal.
yeah,
Super fast forward,
we can
and
see
again very late in the game.
We can see we should see elves have deeper characters. This is definitely very superficial, and like Galadriel's motivation to go to Middle, like she was listening to Fanar's oath. I believe she was filled with the desire to go to Middle Earth and have her own realm and rule her own kingdom. Maybe not during Fanar's oath, but at some point that was part of her motivation why she wanted to go to Middle Earth, or at least why she stayed there.
Fëanor, yeah.
And obviously they're going a different route with Galadriel. But still, she was not the only elf who thought like that, and we know there was there was a lot of ambition, especially among the Noldor, obviously. So give them that and play with that. Not that I absolutely agree. This was the kind of like the cheapest, most straightforward shortcut to a motivation for elves to want to do something in the season. It's like they needed to create a conflict, or like not a conflict, but like kind of a conflict in Lindon, so that stuff can be happening there, and they could have gone way in many different ways. It's very disappointing, but I think what Mike said, those two counter arguments, I mean, that's hopefully where they will be going with this. So maybe they can, pull this off, kind of at least. Yeah. But this moment was that there was no reason to put. I mean, okay, maybe they could have even done just like without mentioning the Silmaril. There was like this special tree. Morgoth wanted it for some reason. There was this epic elf. I don't know. It's still less problematic than just saying there was a Silmaril. Like Silmaril should not have been in it. Maybe a Maiar, like one of the Manwë's followers fought one of the Balrogs, and then something happened, and then that's how Mithril was created. And then that would be weird, but okay, they gave us an origin story for something that doesn't have an origin story. But to put a Silmaril into the middle of all that was absolutely amazing, with the whole lightning thing splitting the.
I think part of the issue too is that we get it in parts. Like we get the Mithril stuff, and then we get the tree is fading, and only later do we get we're all gonna die by spring if we like it's like ugh.
Let's hear from Alan on this. I know you've got something.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that this might have actually played a little better had we seen more of the tension dealing with, well, I was going to say immortality, but serial longevity, right? We have not seen a lot. We haven't seen it at all, really, in terms of with men, right? I mean, we still don't know what the tension is between Númenóreans and elves. We still don't know why Númenóreans don't like elves. or why they're jealous of the elves. We know from the lore that it's because the Numenorians want the eternal life, the serial longevity that the elves had. They're tired of dying when they're only 300 or 400 years old. If we got a little bit of that, then we might understand why the elves fading is so important. And we might understand it in context a little bit better. But, you know, at the end of the day, this feels like a manufactured crisis. And this, again, is why I think, okay, Sauron's got to be involved here somewhere. I'm literally hoping, because, you know, like you said, it would not be right to have Gil-galad be suckered into this. So I'm hoping that that there's a potion of polyjuice involved here, and that, you know, Gil-galad is really someplace else, and that this is just Sauron. I know I'm holding on to hope that they please.
That's
because
very likely. Very likely.
you know,
yeah.
Especially the way, yeah.
Yeah, I
10
mean,
points
it's the
for
only way that
Gryffindor for the
explains
reference.
it. Yeah. So, I mean, I think, you know, because look, I know everybody. Look, I'm a big Silmarillion fan. I love the story of the Silmarils, and no, Silmarils don't grow on trees, and that would be a heck of an orchard if they did. But I don't. It's okay, because, like you said, Michael, they don't necessarily know their own. You know, they don't know the history like we do now, right? They're living in it, so they don't have the benefit that we do of an entire written history explaining what happened to those Silmarils. And it's very possible that that knowledge was either lost or is contained only in Valinor. Whatever the case may be. So I've got no problem with the idea of a myth that isn't accurate being, you know, part of the story. That's great. But the problem is, of course, as we've been not debating, as we've all been agreeing on for the last, you know, 25 minutes, is tying the elves fading to that is going to be problematic. But obviously they're going for the ring thing. They're going for the preservation concept, which does fit with Tolkien, right? I mean, he very much, especially in the letters, really comes down on the elves hard for their desire to keep things the way they are. He talks about how they're being foolish, as though like a reader who's enjoying a book decides he just wants to keep reading the same page over and over again. He makes that sort of an analogy and says that the elves, you know, are doing the wrong thing by artificially preserving the present. So I'm okay with that if that's where it goes, but it's really going to boil down to Gil-galad, please be somewhere else. Just be the fake one.
That would explain why
Lovely.
Benjamin Walker is behaving the way he does as Gil-galad, maybe.
Well, let's talk about
it's hard enough.
Gil-galad. I did want to talk about him in particular, and we've already sort of touched on it, so it could be brief. But you know, this version of Gil-galad is stroking
Painful?
some people the wrong way.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
To put it lightly. Now, in preparing for
Yes,
this
she's
episode,
over there.
I you know, did some research. I went to the History of Middle Earth, and I found an old version of you know, the poem of the Song of Gil-galad that I think is interesting. It's very prescient. This comes straight from the professor. So let me set this up, and you'll recognize the start, of course. Gil-galad was an elven king. Of him the harpers sadly sing. The last whose realm was fair and free between the mountains and the sea. He's a hero, so he should be warm and kind, right? Not manipulative, cunning, cold, or uptight. But then in the rings of power, he's kind of a jerk. So I ask, for you, does this version of Gil-galad work? Straight from the professor.
Well played, sir.
Very
They had
nice.
us in the first half.
Very nice.
Yeah.
So
The
anybody
professor
pick
was
this up?
quiet,
I
yeah.
mean,
I think Lakithia probably
Yeah,
want
I
to say a
think
thing or two.
yeah.
The Book of Lost Tales, Part 7.
Oh, well, you know, he's not blonde, but then again, the nature only came out after they were done shooting or something. No, for me, like we chatted earlier, there's not much said about him, but I think even just, you know, the last whose realm was fair and free, you don't imagine that the realm was fair and free due to his political machinations and manipulations and everything. Gil-galad was the one character I was looking forward to the most, so I'm a bit heartbroken now, and I'm absolutely sure Benjamin Walker is a lovely gentleman who did the best he could, but for me, absolutely nothing about this character works. I'll start with the superficial. I don't like the way he looks. What's with the undercut?
Absolutely.
Yes, I mentioned his hair. Yo,
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
I had to
You're
squeeze it in
allowed, yeah.
somehow.
Of course.
But then the haughtiness.
Yeah.
I didn't like it with Thranduil in the Hobbit trilogy. People were saying, "Oh yeah, but you know, because they kind of brought up Nauglamir, and he was supposed to be a reference." So I understand why they went with a slightly more haughty direction with him, but why Gil-galad as well? Like, not all
Yeah.
elven kings that we get to know need to be that way. Not all of them need to be a little bit
That's a good
manipulative, a
point.
little bit selfish. I was really looking forward to genuinely getting to know somebody who's really dedicated to his people, to bettering their lives. And
That's a good point.
that's not the person that we're getting at the moment. The person we're getting is somebody who's on the one hand, he seems to be asking Elrond to trust him, but on the other hand, he's, downright manipulating him and lying to him and
Lying to
deceiving
him.
him.
Openly.
So for me, this is such a, I don't know, it's a contradiction. It doesn't make for a compelling character. I don't particularly like the way he's been acted, even practically the way he was acting at the dinner with Durin. I mean, he was such a beep. No, that's not okay.
He
You
was
don't
big.
Yes,
you don't act
absolutely.
this
Yeah,
way. You
yeah.
have a person from another culture there, and you behave like a teenager. This is
Yeah.
a person who's centuries, millennia old at this point, and that's not the way I imagine
Absolutely,
an
yeah.
Elven King behaving.
You're absolutely right.
Rant over.
And I love your connection with Thranduil on that, because if you remember some of the text in The Hobbit, where we start to get little hints of the different kinds of elves, there's the talk about these elves are less wise and more
Yeah.
dangerous. That's
Yeah.
specifically applied to Thranduil because he's
Yes.
That
not
is
of
true.
the light.
Mhm.
He's not a Calaquendi. Gil-galad, on the other hand, is absolutely Calaquendi. He is the ultimate Calaquendi and
Yeah.
should be different. He should not be manipulative. He should
So is
not be
Feanor.
lying. And well, yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Special
But I
case.
get, yeah.
The exception that proves the rule. Yeah, Gil-galad definitely should be above board on this, and that's again why I keep hoping we'll find him in a cave somewhere.
I didn't think of that point, because I think I like kingly characters are often like that. You think like Lear and Votan, and they're often like that. But yeah, the fact that we had it with Thranduil already kind of makes it a a one-trick pony thing. But also beyond that, yeah, the way we've not a lot with Gil-galad. We have this scene, and we have a very similar scene actually with Galadriel. In both scenes, Benjamin Walker is acting, like Gil-galad is acting in the scene, and in both cases, Gil-galad is acting like his act is so transparent that both Galadriel in that scene and Durin here immediately pick up on it, and it's like, really, you'd think he'd have a better game. And
Okay,
he doesn't.
speaking
Thousands
of
of years of practice. Yeah.
Yeah, he's it's self-conscious, the acting is.
just a quick one. Speaking of people picking up on stuff, do you think Gil-galad picked up on the fact that Durin made up the whole table story?
No,
I think
which
he
makes
did.
him look super stupid.
I think he
I think he let
did.
him have it. Yeah.
I think he did
I think he
too.
did.
Yeah, I think he saw
So to quote him, so how he's acting. I think he was, when he responds to "Please forgive us this sacrilege, Master Dwarf."
Yeah.
He was
And the
acting.
eyebrow goes up.
There was like another
Yes,
layer
yes.
to that. So I
Yeah.
think it was intentional.
Yeah, I think so.
No, I think that's just the way Benjamin Walker acts him. But yeah, okay, like he's like that in every.
Yeah,
scene.
but it feels like there was like another layer there.
Yeah, maybe.
So-
I don't know.
But I want to say, I think, okay, I love Gil-galad. I was very, as everyone else, so excited to see him, especially because he was cut from the movies, even from the extended. Like we see a shot, but we all wanted more of them in the whole prologue. So I was very excited to see him, and I forgot where I was going with this. Okay,
The old
somebody
age
go on.
finally caught up with
Yeah.
you. It's okay. We understand.
Thinking about Gil-galad sucked all the thoughts right out of your head. All right, well, I think my role is to play devil's advocate just a little bit then. And unfortunately, I'm,
Oh boy.
taking a contrary position when I actually agree with you all. But I want to point out, and this is something that Benjamin Walker has said in every single interview he's done, that there is almost nothing written about Gil-galad
Yes.
in terms of his specific character, the way he interacts, nothing in his voice, no dialogue. We know that he is a good guy. I'm being a little bit reductive, but that's basically all we get. We know he is a
Yes.
hero. He's a hero character and he's a king. But how does it look when you zoom in? Is he warm? Is he gentle? Is he kind, as Elrond is specifically described to be? And I think a lot of people are reacting to the way he's portrayed because he's not any of those things. He is not warm. Now he's actually a liar, which I think we can all agree is just bad, no matter how you slice it.
Right.
But how much of our reaction to or our opinion of what Gil-galad should be like is just us bringing our own notions of good guy into it and just sort of layering it on to a blank canvas. And if that's the case, should we give a little bit more leeway for their sort of different interpretation? Because I'll say, like, thinking in this way, it's been fun because it's forced me to challenge my own preconceived notions of who Gil-galad is and sort of realize there isn't much there. And even though I don't really like the way they're going with it, maybe it's like an artistically justifiable choice that I should kind of like try and embrace.
It is.
So what I wanted to say was actually regarding his character. So I saw a comedian talking about people not believing in any conspiracy theories, and he made a great point. The president of your country, do you really think they will always say? Do you really think it's smart for them and for everybody in your country for them to tell you the truth 100% of the time? And he makes a parallel with him being a father, and he's like, I lie to my 5-year-old kids all the time, because I have to. I have to. So from that point, of view, I don't mind necessarily seeing Gil-galad being, he's a king, and I believe as a king, you obviously cannot be 100% truthful the whole time because you're gonna mess up something. So for me, that's not a problem as it is, as the idea, but the problem is it goes back to the whole concept of what's happening to the elves in connection to Mithril and the whole thing. If he was manipulating, or lying or whatever, as for some actually logical, justifiable, sensible reason, if this whole plot had sense, I would have zero problems with that. But he is kind of bad at it. And the thing that he is lying for, or because of, or whatever, it's just funny. It doesn't make sense and all that. So I don't have a problem with him being such a king, because I think rulers have to be kind of like that. Mm-hmm. They have to keep things away from certain people. But the way they are going around it, that's the problem.
I'm thinking more like if you were doing it more the way Bernard Hill did Theoden, who does lie and is stubborn and has very negative attributes, but it's done in such a way that it's kept under control. Here, I mean, to be fair, we've seen very little of him, so the percentage of him being manipulative and kind of larger than life in a way is going to be very big in terms of what we do see of him. So it's kind of
there's a lot of room for him to improve.
Or even Gandalf. I mean, the way he's portrayed in the films, he is a little bit tricksy, and I don't know. In the Hobbit films, he deliberately misleads Elrond when the dwarves have already departed, etc. And it's done in a lovable way. You realize that he's noble, and yes, he's trying to do whatever needs to be done to get to what he believes to be the solution. But with Gil-galad, they just went full on this, like somebody likes to say, Machiavellian politician who's willing to deceive his closest colleagues, which in my opinion is a big no-go.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, I'm glad we all could agree that Gil-galad is not somebody you'd like to invite out to dinner.
That's a good parallel.
Unless you want his table.
There you go.
That's actually a good idea.
And that was a great joke, by the way. That was super funny. But I will. That's David Lean used to say that he would measure characters by how interesting would this person be to have dinner with. Yeah, that's a good measure.
Well, just to be clear, I would love to go and get a beer with Benjamin Walker. He seems super fun.
No, with a character.
But I'm not so sure. I wouldn't go for a cup of wine at the moment. But I mean, we have to. I don't know, Mike, if you have a plan or something. But I just have to say, and then you can steer us into the plan direction. But before we go from this whole plot, we gotta talk about Durin at some point. Just to be clear.
If you got something on Durin, let's do it now.
Well, I just want to say that Varking was absolutely amazing in this episode. I thought
absolutely amazing.
I just wanted to say that. But seriously, he was absolutely amazing. The whole thing with the table was peak
super funny.
stuff. Like it made the whole Linden part like 50% awesome. Like he
it
nailed it,
helped.
and they keep being one of the strongest points of the show. The two of them, Elrond and Durin, like amazing duo.
Absolutely.
So I just needed to say that because our man or our dwarf parking is managing this whole streamy thing.
Yeah, he'll shut us down if we don't bring that up.
I like
we
wolves
we would be in trouble if we failed to mention that, and he did deserve it. So I'm glad that Disa is getting her table, and she deserved it.
Yeah, it was.
Are we gonna chat about their the rest of their plot line in Linden later, or can we just handle it now?
Let's go ahead and do it now. Yeah, I don't want to stop the flow.
I just want to build up on what everybody has already said. I think this was the most delightful part of the episode. Their chemistry continues to be spectacular. Durin's humor continues to be spectacular, and him just insisting on whose hands. That was just amazing. Everything from acting, writing, it was so charming. It was just delightful. And I didn't pick up on the fact that he was misleading the elves with the table the first time around.
I think nobody
until the revelation.
I
you
remember
did?
thinking, I did. I remember I was writing in my notes because so I'm watching it at night and I'm taking notes because we record the episode for the podcast the very next day. And I remember thinking, I think he's snookering them. I think he's suckering them in on this. And then I got to the end, I watched it, I was like, oh yeah. But
it was an expert move.
No.
Like he just went towards the table from whatever Gil-galad was throwing at. He was just like, by the way, this table.
It was a masterful change of subject.
That table?
It was a masterful change of subject. He didn't want to keep going down that line where he was getting probed and prodded by Gil-galad. And so he shifted to something that he knew would absolutely make Gil-galad not be able to do anything else about it. Like he'd have to address this issue. And it totally changed the subject. It changed the tone and timbre of the conversation. And he did it brilliantly. And I'm like, I think this is a game.
And the power dynamics as well. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Everything shifted.
It was really well done. It was brilliant. Nice. Except I will say that table was way too heavy for 6 elves to carry. Can I just say that real quick?
I mean, across Eriador, yeah, sure, let's go.
Well,
just 6 of us.
Across 100 yards. Across 100 yards.
Exactly.
Even if that table is only 12 feet by 4 feet, and I actually think it's bigger than that, and 3 inches deep, and again, I think it's thicker than that.
It looks a lot, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, even if it's 12 by 4, 3 inches, depending on the material, it's going to weigh anywhere from 1,800 to 2,200 pounds. So that means each elf is carrying about 300 to 350 pounds one-handed. Mm-hmm. I know they're strong.
But what if?
Come on.
You know how elves walk on snow? What if when they're carrying a table,
they don't look like they're straining?
Like a giant leaf or something.
I'm going to be hiring the Noldor moving servants. I know there's no pressure.
Maybe they
taking
were
the jobs and all that,
Yeah, but maybe they were just a part of the Gwaiti Mirdine who would have been a bit more, just a little bit stronger. But yeah.
That's a lot of strength.
You do see them.
That's a lot of
straining.
Yeah, he drops it. He almost drops it.
He drops it.
This scene, I think we just gotta, we can't look too hard at it.
I just keep wanting to remind them: has nobody invented the wheel here in the Second Age? Because you could just put this thing on a cart.
Chariot.
I mean, they needed a couple of Harfoots to help them, transport it to
that advanced
side of Eriador.
One of the funny things is Durin does have a couple of dwarf guards with him, and they're not carrying the table.
In the ceremonial armor and everything, right?
Before we go to our next topic, I want to do a quick time check for you, Alan. I know that you slotted an hour and coming up on that hour.
I can, it doesn't matter.
Well, be careful what you say because we
say our episodes for the Rings of Power wrap-up are aiming for 45 minutes to an hour, and I don't think we've been less than an hour 20 yet. So yeah, I'm fine.
Well, be careful. We will shoot well beyond that if allowed. So you let us know anytime.
I will tell you when I have to go. It's fine. Yeah.
So before we get to the next plot line, I want to do a little segment that I think will be fun, which I'm calling pros or no-nos.
Oh yeah,
it's a work in progress. But to me, the beauty of Tolkien's Legendarium is found not just in the massive scope of the world building and the depth of the history or the themes that Tolkien explores, but in the actual writing, the prose and sometimes poetry that he uses to convey all of that. Duplicating his uniquely beautiful writing is really an impossible task, but one that all adaptations must strive to achieve. The Rings of Power at times gives us dialogue or songs that sound as though they were indeed penned by the professor himself. They do a really good job, which I think is the highest praise I could ever give. And yet at other times, some lines are, let's just say, not quite that good. And each episode has offered us a bit of both, kind of frustratingly so. We get highs and low lows. And so I'm calling the segment Pros and No-Nos because I want to hear what your favorite lines were from the episode, the ones that to you come closest to equaling the professor's prose. And then give me your least favorite, the ones that just, had you groaning and left you saying, no, why? So let's start with Alan on this one.
Of course. I'm so sorry, because I'm probably going to end up saying things that everybody else is going to say, and I feel bad if I'm taking anybody's answers. I do want to say, in reference to the show using Tolkien's language as much as possible, what I've noticed, disappointingly a little bit, and I'm not criticizing it as a whole, but I've noticed that there are more specific callbacks to Jackson's words than to Tolkien's words. There's a lot, Galadriel talking about the men in the South being scattered and leaderless, but they may unite. I mean, that's totally a callback to Elrond. There have been a number of lines like this where you feel the Jackson reference, whereas in Jackson you got a lot of Tolkien references where he would give the narrative about the White Tower of Ithilien to Boromir to speak those words right out of the text to Aragorn. You may have given them different characters, right? I mean, we know that Treebeard spoke some of Tom Bombadil's lines in the extended edition, or Wormtongue uses the bit that in the books Gandalf talks to Éomer about his sister. So I do think that the show has a tendency to lean on Jackson too much. But with that said, I'm going to say Poppy's song. I've no rest or comfort, no comfort but song. And even though there's a copy of the line about not all those who wander are lost, I love the addition that not all those who wonder or wander are lost. It felt very Tolkien-esque. The entire thing from top to bottom of the song really rang true to me as being faithful to Tolkien's feel. And we're supposed to do both the pro and the no in the same time, or do we come back for
it?
Oh gosh. Give me the meat and give it to me raw. That's gotta be my. I mean, it's the line that launched 1,000 memes, most of which will be absolutely unwholesome. It was.
Yeah, but it's
even
funny.
though it was funny, I know it was hilarious and I loved it. But we're talking about does it feel like Tolkien? And that did not feel like Tolkien. That actually felt like Jackson, right? That was give me raw and wriggling. It's hilarious. I rolled. I laughed out loud. But if I'm answering the question, does it sound like Tolkien? It doesn't sound like Tolkien at all. And that would be my pros and no-nos.
Ham, let's go with you next.
Okay, I'm gonna agree actually with the poetry. The bit of poetry that we have is the most Tolkien-esque thing I think of the entire show so far. Actually, was a very nice poem. I think written by the lyrics were by JD. Very good. Very good stuff. Very pleasing. And we get it again reprised on the end credits. It's very nice. Very Tolkien-like. Least one, you could go with the Song of Hithaigle, but I'm actually going to exclude that. And Galadriel looks on the Numenorian boys, I guess, training, and she says their blows fall like the stone giants of the North Wars or something like that. Yeah, not. On the one hand, it's nice because we do see the stone giants in another installment, and you could construe it as a kind of foreshadowing. Okay. But yeah, I never like dialogue like that in fantasy, where where the dialogue is using the stock and trade of the fantasy world itself. It's just if there's tiny bits of it, sure, but yeah,
sort of Tolkien
like
word
it.
salad.
Yeah, not a fan.
All right, Lakitia.
Okay. I didn't take the assignment quite as seriously as my predecessors, I'm afraid.
Good.
I gotta say that I didn't go for the line that I felt was most Tolkienian, but I went for the line that made me feel the happiest and most, just gave me all the fuzzy feelings. And that was I think the very first line we hear in this episode, which is my great thumb. I thought that was very charming. I'm loving Meteor Man, aka the Stranger, very much, and I'm finding him, I don't know, just it was just heartwarming, and the way that Nori then corrects him. So that was, I think, my favorite line from the whole episode. And I did actually rewatch the episode today. I did manage to do it, and I did pay attention to the quotes, and I did write a few of them down. But I gotta say that apart from Poppy's song, none of them really did stick out to me as particularly just having really gorgeous prose. I mean, it's dialogue, so you don't expect them to burst into song and use these
Yeah.
beautiful metaphors or anything. But yeah. So in the end, I went for something that I felt was I don't know. I thought it fit very well within the storyline where it happened.
I agree.
And as far as my least favorite one is concerned, and I swear I'm not being biased here. I really, really, really am not being biased here. And Durin had many fantastic lines. But at the dinner table, when he said, typically it takes you people weeks just to decide to take a
That was
I like that, but I
just
see the point.
groaned.
Yeah.
I just
not Tolkien.
but with this one, yeah, I went for this one. Did not sound Tolkienian. It was very, very in tune with the sort of humor the dwarves had in the
Yeah.
Hobbit trilogy. I didn't like it then. I don't like it here. It
Yeah.
felt so out of place.
Yeah.
It portrays this image of the dwarves as just ultimately very, very vulgar, and I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think it fit well with the character of Durin as we had him presented so far either. So I just felt it felt out of place, and I hated it.
I like almost every. It's gonna sound weird, but I like every element that is transgressive in media. So I would have been fine if he completed the sentence as well. But that's me.
Strider, how
Yeah.
about you?
I just thought it lowers the dignity of Doran. That was the thing.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, which is what she's saying. Yeah, I get
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Yeah.
And makes him a very, very bad diplomat as well, which I think he was
Yeah.
presented as
That's
very
true.
politically savvy in a way, and then he just starts
Yeah.
talking about no.
Yeah, but I don't know. I'm gonna be playing Dwarven advocate tonight, and I'll also
Dwarven
say
advocate.
that I didn't mind at any of either of those two lines, because while I do agree they obviously are not Tolkienian, they're definitely more have a vibe of the Hobbit trilogy. I think that it's a show. We have to see this everyday down to earth thing, like happening, like in the lives and all that, and it's just something that happens, especially when you're with the lads or something. So it kind of makes sense. And for me, both lines they just made me chuckle, and I didn't care about them that much. So I'll say the one that I don't like actively is "the sea is always right." It feels just like a cliche thing to say, and if Numer is gonna have a catchphrase, it should be more than that. So it's not like the worst thing anybody ever said in the show.
No.
Definitely not. But as a catchphrase, as like the motto of Numenor, that's, oh my god. But I have to say, Warking is having so much fun in the chat. He just said the sea drowned Isildur's mom. And the sea is always right, so that's the implication.
The sea is gonna drown a
Wow,
lot
that's
more
dark.
than just.
That's very
the-
dark.
Brutal.
The sea is gonna drown a lot more than just seal those.
No, but anyway, the point
Okay.
is, it's just not worthy of Numenor at all.
But in that
I do have to.
Sorry.
I do have to agree with the song. The whole scene with Poppy's song was 15 out of 10 for me. I really enjoyed the visual, like what we were saying, what we were hearing so much, and I prefer her voice to the lady who actually sings the song for the end credits. I mean, she does an amazing job, but Poppy just feels, you feel her from this world. It's more deep when you hear her sing it. And I liked that also they gave Numenor I don't think it's a
they have
drinking
a pop
song, but it's
song.
like a patriotic song. And I think it wasn't specifically Tolkienian, like in the sense that in the same way that Poppy song was. But I could see it being, one of like 10,000 patriotic songs people on Numenor may have, or drinking song, or like a combination of those, or whatever. So I think that was pretty cool. But my favorite part was, I was going to say Meteor Man, but let's go with Stranger. I
come
I
on.
think I mean Meteor Man is our own thing, so Meteor Man.
Boy,
Yeah.
dude.
He's the actor. Daniel Lehman is
Yes.
absolutely nailing it. He
Really
is amazing. Everything he said so far, which wasn't a lot, but like with those few quips that he made, they were
Yeah.
amazing. And for me, if I have to narrow it down to a specific part, was okay. Also, the migration situation was fun, but the I'm peril, and then I'm a good guy. Like that whole thing was
It was great. Yeah.
amazing, absolutely
His
amazing.
acting.
And that was acting
Yeah.
is top notch, and the lines. Harfoots are like the dark horses so far of the season. They've been consistently pretty good.
Yeah.
And this was absolutely amazing. That's why I love this. First half of the episode was really, really, really good.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I
Most of the
wholeheartedly
episode,
agree.
actually.
High praise indeed. Consistently pretty good.
Consistently pretty
No,
good.
because
Hey, I would accept that.
you
5
have
seasons,
certain
50 hours
problems.
of consistently pretty good would be fine with me.
Yeah, like you have the
Yeah.
problem with them. I mean, Malva. If we're gonna talk about her, like just take their wheels and leave them behind. Like what?
I was amazed she
what?
didn't die.
Like yeah, and like she I think a lot of people wouldn't mind that. Like what? And after all, we don't leave any. We will. There was like the short video that they did meet Sadok, and he says we keep everyone with us in our memories or something like that. Like what's happening there? So that's the problem why they're not consistently perfect. That's what's happening with that.
There's a
You
joke
know,
in the
that-
chat earlier that she is an ancestor of the Sackville Bagginses.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That's
she's
on point.
Really
There we are.
great grandmother. Yeah.
Can I just
So-
have one short comment on? And I didn't realize this before, and probably everybody except me has realized this 3 episodes ago. But one thing I do find funny about the Numenorian motto being "the sea is always right" is how that refers to their eventual,
Oh, yeah.
ending.
Yeah.
So in that sense, I do appreciate the irony. I still do think
I
that
do.
the general motto doesn't make sense, and I think it could have been done in a way that it would make sense and it would, maintain the irony. But yeah, I do appreciate, I can imagine a shot of a very dedicated, I don't know, patriots of Numenor just, drowning in the eventual downfall and being like, yeah, but the sea is always right. So, I guess whatever.
I'll take my
so,
licks. See ya.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I knew that the walking song was going to be most people's favorite, and it is mine as well. I love the connection to the poem that Bilbo wrote about Strider. And the idea that maybe his inclusion of that line is sort of deeply rooted in his Hobbit ancestry, right? That has sort of worked its way into the Hobbit folklore. I love that idea, and just the song itself. But since I knew everybody was going to be picking that one, I tried to pick something a little different.
Of course.
It's my second favorite, and it was the line that Pharazôn said to Kemen. I thought it was pretty good.
Okay. Which
It's
one?
folly to kick against the current. You see the tide may rise and drown a man, or fall and sweep him out to sea. The trick of mastering the current is to know which way it will turn next, which is obviously so ironic given what will happen to Numenor, which Pharazôn is directly responsible for driving them to. It's also interesting that both options, where he's talking about mastering the tide, if the tide rises, it drowns you, and if it falls, it sweeps you out to sea. Both of those are bad options. So I just kind of enjoyed what was going on in that line. My least favorite was the one that just really jumped out at me when Galadriel was giving the sword fighting lesson, and she says, I forget exactly what it was, but she says, you stab, twist, and gut. Yeah. And I was like, gut? It just felt so wrong.
It's kind of in line with the kind of, I don't want to say mean, but that kind of Galadriel. They go for the jugular kind of Galadriel, so it works for her. Yeah, but she talks a lot. She talks a lot throughout that little fight. Like she gives them like little advices throughout, and it's kind of weird.
Well, all right. So we got a couple more plot lines that I think we'd like to touch on. We got Numenor and the Southlands. Any preferences about which we go to next?
You're driving this ship, and the sea is always right. So
here and done. The sea is always right. We're going straight with Numenor and Pharazôn. So, in a fascinating scene, we see Kemen plead with Pharazôn to use his influence to stop the expedition. And in Pharazón's response, we learn that he wants Numenor to go because sailing to Middle-earth and installing a Southlander king offers opportunities for trade, wealth, and tribute. This tells us, for the first time, actually, that Numenor has never been to Middle-earth before.
Exactly.
Neither
Or
has
at least
Pharazôn.
not for a long time, yeah.
This is compression of the timeline right here.
Yes,
This is taking the entirety of, you know, the second part of the Second Age and compressing it into a single generation. So we're going to see I mean, you could hear it in the things that he talked about in terms of the benefit, right? The trade, the forestry, all of this stuff. So you can, the ore. He's clearly talking about the exploitation of natural resources, the imperialism, the sort of
the deforestation.
Yes, exactly. So we're going to see that, and we're all going to see it compressed into a short time span.
So I want to ask the panel to address the thematic consequences of this change, which it is a change, as you just very well laid out, Alan. We're compressing the entire arc of Numenor's expansion into Middle-earth, where they first come as saviors and benefactors, and then it slowly morphs into them being oppressors of the worst kind. And we're going to see that all compressed into one timeline, one lifetime. That our primary protagonists, Elendil and Isildur, are going to be witness to, potentially a party to, in some capacity. And so, what does that mean for the arc of our primary protagonists? They are dealing with grief and loss. They have different opinions about how to deal with it. Pharazôn may also be dealing with grief. I mean, he has a son, but no wife, as far as we can see. So, and they're disagreeing about how to adhere to the old elven ways. All of that is going to be, brought into stark relief when it's forced through the crucible of Numenor becoming conquerors and all of those misdeeds. So how will Numenor's conduct and those internal conflicts between those characters, which the show has already set up, ultimately push them towards the ending we know is coming? So it's kind of, I hope, a meaty question. This is a change, but how does it fit into the arc of our characters? Anybody, let it sit with you for a second, but Strider, go ahead.
I can, So I think the way the direction they're taking with Numenor can cause so much problems down the road. I'm really hoping they have a really clear-cut quality plan regarding the whole thing, because for all the reasons you said, we need to see them falling, but how will they make that work in a span of like the next 2 seasons, maybe like a season and a half or something, where we need to see them go there, be friends, and then become the oppressors. And and if the seasons continue to have this 8-story arc, there's no time for that. So I think this is very, very risky thing to do in regards to driving the point of Numenor's fall and all that, because they came to the people of Harad as like their first meetings and the first hundreds of years of their mutual coexisting together was they were what elves were for the Edain. They were teachers. They brought them technology. They helped them build things. They learned them. They taught them so many things.
Agriculture
they improved their way of thinking. Like what elves did for the men, that's what Numenorians did for the people Harad, for example. And then as when the Aradunakor appears, and then when they start hating on elves and being envious and all that, and they slowly over generations become imperialists, they become the dictators, the oppressors, and that's where the hatred of Harad towards Gondor comes from, among other things. So I think I'm very disappointed with I'm hoping, let's see, maybe they will make this all make sense. Maybe it will all be feeling very cool in like 3 seasons from now. But at the moment, this is a very dangerous direction to take with Numenor. I really didn't expect them to go this way. It's like not even 180, it's like 60 degrees that way, and let's see what happens. So I'm not very happy with this. I'm really unhappy with this.
Interesting.
Lakitia, are you equally unhappy?
Yeah, I think this was something that we considered possible when we heard that the timelines were being compressed. I agree with everything that Strider has said. My utmost concern is that this can easily result in a lot of oversimplifications and very much on the nose solutions and dialogue like we already got in Numenor with the whole, the elves are going to take your job sort of thing.
Oh yes.
I think this will inevitably be the result of the direction that they're taking right now. But yeah, I don't know. I'm afraid that this is going to be again a very direct, very very unsubtle criticism of imperialism, which I mean personally, yeah, of course, I want to sit and criticize that, but I'm afraid that the way it's being done right now, the way that the timeline is unraveling, um, it's gonna be done very very unsubtly. It's gonna be done in a way that a lot of people are gonna hate. So yeah, I'm not a fan of it.
Yeah, I'm not as quick to like, to doom it because it's so far in the future. They have enough time conceivably to, show Numenor's expansion, show it turn from benevolent to malignant. You can do that. That's conceivable. I think part of the issue is that they've kind of eaten away of like if we got to the point that we are now in episode 3, they would have had more time by extension to play with that, whereas it current as of yet, they can't. So we'll see.
Alan, you've been thoughtful.
Yeah. Maybe because I'm still trying to think what I think of this. No, the obviously the time compression is an issue, but we've known about that from the get-go. What they're doing, it seems, is that they're not compressing the Elven timeline. They're shifting it, right? We know when the rings were made. We know that they were made long before Pharazôn was on the scene, long before Muriel was on the scene. So they've shifted the Elvish timeline to the end, and they've then compressed the Númenórean timeline at the same time. So how's that going to work with compressing the Númenórean timeline? It can be done. Remember, we're talking about a 50-hour show at the end of the day, and we are only 5 hours and 20 minutes.
5 hours 15, I counted.
Yeah. So
minus credits, minus everything.
Yeah. So we're talking about 10-12% of the way through. I think they're going to be all right with that. I just my hope is that that's not the only issue that we bring up with the Númenóreans. I'm still waiting for that conflict with the elves and serial longevity, and that's really going to be tough to deal with in a compressed timeline. And maybe that's why they've abandoned it, because how do you talk about that tension without introducing multiple generations of humans while you only have a single generation of elves? I think that would have been, one thing they could have done, but obviously they've chosen not to. Yeah, with as much time as they have, I'm actually not worried about how they'll handle the expansion, the imperialism, the deforestation, the move from heroes to oppressors. Yeah, maybe by season 3 we'll see them being oppressors. I'm not also very worried about Elendil or Isildur. I think I see them, stepping out somehow, not being a part of that. They're not going to be a party, at least not willingly, to that sort of treatment, of the peoples of Middle Earth. So I'm not quite as worried about that as I am about some of the other storylines. So
I agree.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm at this point.
I can see the thing that Lakidia and Strider are saying. I can see it happening.
100%. Absolutely. The writers can
but at the
botch
same
this
time,
completely.
yeah. But at the same time, yeah.
I just want to address something that Alan just said, and also Han. Originally, I thought that they can portray. Okay, no, let me take a step back. When we heard about the time compression, I started being an advocate for the idea that they can still handle showing several, not exactly maybe lifespans of people, but certainly they can show a certain amount of time passing, right? We can see. I don't think we're ever going to be losing the actors that we have for the roles, so I think we're going to keep the actors for Theo, Nori, etc. So I don't think too much time will pass through the course of this show, right? But they still can show some time passing, and I thought, maybe like a decade or perhaps 2 decades. But given how slowly the story is moving now, whereas we've had Galadriel spend 3 episodes, I think, in Numenor now, and I would say that, I mean, we don't know for certain, but I would say that in world, a very short amount of time has passed. A little more time has passed with the Harfoots in this last episode when we saw the traveling montage, where
Yeah.
I think we're supposed to think at least several months have passed or something like that. But still, it's a very, very short amount of time. So I don't think we'll have enough time to see the effects and the consequences of, you know, imperialization actually happening. So that's why I'm a little bit worried, because it seems like it's going to be a crash course through how how this sort
Governments become bad, yeah.
Yeah.
situations take place. So yeah.
That's
Oh,
what has me worried the most. Exactly that we don't have enough time, especially now that we've seen how this, as Lakita just said, how the story is going, like the pace of it. It feels like by far not enough time. That's why I've been an advocate. I'm really hoping that we'll get to see bigger time jumps.
You're
Like-
starting to convince me, you two.
I know.
Because seriously, like, we can see the older Harfoots die of old age or in some other way. We can still keep like 90% of this current cast, even if we jump like 50 years in the future, because hobbits are supposed to live around at least around 100 years old on average. So we can have all of these people, except except also the people. Well, actually, kind of, we have the people from Southlands. They can all be alive in 50 years. Or, most of the main people. And then we have elves, we have dwarves, we have Numenorians.
Yeah,
They
but
really,
Theo
in
would
my
have-
opinion, they really need to.
But
We
I
will
don't
have to
think they're
recast him
doing it.
or something. But
Yeah, I agree.
that's what I'm hoping for, because
Sure.
I don't think that will happen, which is what worries me, because otherwise, I don't feel that we have now 4 more seasons of 8 episodes. Well, actually, we have like 2 more seasons of Numenor storyline, more or less. That's 16 episodes. In 16 episodes, and then if we take, for each storyline, let's say that's, I don't know, 2 hours or something per season. When? That's so worrying for me, because
You're
there's
starting
so
to
much
convince me, and I don't
so
like
much,
it.
there's so much to do with Numenor. There's so much that has to be done with Numenor to make any sense of lore-related sense for everything that's happening there. Like there's so much we need to see.
Yeah, there is.
And one of the things that we
Not
need to
nearly enough
see
time
is
without time jumps.
one of the things we do need to see also is the way that Numenorians fear their mortality and the way that they try
Exactly.
and protest against that. And we had a great super chat from Bill C. Thank you, Bill C. And I want to shout out there. He says, perhaps the feeble Tar Palantir is what our Pharazôn fears, a contrast for the mortality impetus. So Tar Palantir is, in this show at least, a very glaring example of, the sadness and decay of death, mortal death. And the idea that perhaps that's Pharazôn will eventually. We haven't really seen it yet. Pharazôn doesn't seem to care about mortality. That's not the thing that seems to bother him.
And yet that's the
maybe we
whole
will.
key to the downfall of Numenor. If we don't get to that, what are they going to do? Drown Numenor because they're a bunch of bad guys oppressing the peoples of Middle Earth? They've got to make it about Pharazôn seeking immortality, seeking to wrest it from the Valar, and we have not planted even a seed of that yet.
Yeah.
And that does concern me quite a bit.
Yeah, that's true. But boy, you people are, But, it's usually me playing this role, but I'm not. But yeah, I get your point. I'll be surprised
think-
if Pharazôn doesn't smother Palantir.
Oh man, like in Gladiator with when
I love Gladiator, so
I know, one of my favorite films, and now I can't stop getting that scene out of my head.
Commodus, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I think this is something that we've all speculated might happen. This might be the reason why they've introduced Kamen in the first place, to kickstart Pharazôn's fear of his own mortality. So I'm kind of expecting Kamen to,
How would he do that exactly?
No, I get what
die,
you're saying.
you mean? Or
Yes.
I mean, I just want to add that in order for his death to have a very tangible effect on Pharazôn, I think we need to establish some more,
Fatherly.
we need to see more of their relationship, because right now it doesn't seem to be particularly
Doesn't like him very
loving.
much.
It doesn't like him very much, but still, I mean, even if you don't like your child, if they die, that still, I think, shakes you to the core anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that might be a way to have him really start to fear his own impending death. And
Yeah, I agree.
that's my guess.
Yeah. Though for Kemen to save the day in that regard, they've got to get him out of the Hallmark rom-com that he's currently in.
Oh,
This
God.
Hallmark Channel
yeah.
meet cute and I won't even talk about his hair, but just this notion that he's I mean, seriously, I have seen Hallmark movie stuff that's Hallmark Channel movies that are better than that in terms of the rom-com, and that makes me want to cry. But if we can get him out of that particular storyline and get a better father-son relationship, then maybe we can actually.
I was pleasantly surprised though that he does genuinely seems to like her. It isn't just we need to get her on our side. No, it's not at all.
No, he really does seem to. Yeah.
So at least there's that going for it.
I actually wanted to comment exactly on that. To me, again, I will continue criticizing the fact that they have had 8 episodes in a season when they're trying to tell this crazy huge story. I will continue criticize that until they switch it to at least 10, because there constantly feels like we're missing bits and pieces, like small intercutscenes or something. And I want to say Iarian specifically and Kemen, to me, feel like that was the thought that I had today when I was rewatching the show. They feel like what happened to Eva Green's character in Kingdom of Heaven. The director's cut of that movie is 3 grades better than the original cut. You lose everything regarding her character. That's just like a specific example. And that feels for a lot of, like for Galadriel, I think almost every storyline has that problem. We needed 2 episodes of things happening to everyone.
Yeah.
To make things make more sense. And we know that some scenes were cut. Like, for example, actually, I know there was.
I mean, it's so rapid. They had one dinner and one conversation, and that's all it took for Kemen to become a terrorist,
dinner scene,
basically.
and we didn't see the dinner. That's the exact point, and we know they shot it.
Yeah,
and
it
feels like
you feel it's missing. A character development is missing. Relationships development is missing. Like Arian has this really important relationship with her family. I mean, we see very, very little of it. Even we don't see her. I don't know. We don't see them telling her that they're leaving for Middle Earth. We don't see her reacting to that. We just see her trying to catch Pharazôn's attention, and we don't even know why. I mean, what is her stance in this regard? Then, of course, I mean, we do get some sort of explanation, but still, even when Isildur is leaving, all she gets is a glance back.
Close-up.
He's smiling. He has no idea that she's upset.
No, like Emma Horvath mentioned this in the Reddit talk that our bro Varking is hosting every Saturday with different people from the cast, and she said that was like this amazing, important scene that was cut. And you can feel, where we left off with the 2 of them in the previous episode, and now they're chasing through the throne room or whatever, and you can feel that stuff was happening. Like, who is she to call Pharazôn by name?
Right.
Like there was no relationship there. He barely knew who her father is. Mm-hmm. He has kind of a family. That's his. But now she's like, not even Chancellor Pharazôn. She's like Pharazôn.
Right.
There was something happening there. We don't see that. So we're just jumping through the things. Like, this 8-episode season will not work for the rest of the series.
Well,
like, I'm 100% sure.
Yeah. And so this idea of cut scenes, I'm hoping that if we ever see additional footage, what is her investment? Like you said, she's trying to get the attention of Pharazôn, but at the end, all we get from her with her family is a little wink and a nod from Isildur. There's no conflict. There's no contact with her father. No goodbye there. But did you all notice at the end of the show, the shot on the ship when Elendil's saying it's time to set sail? Did you see the branch of the tree on the ship? Do you guys know what that is?
I did, yes.
The green bough of return. So that's from the tale of Aldarion and Arendis.
Yeah.
And it's a branch from this tree that's a symbol of good fortune. It's also like a token of friendship with Osse and Uinen. And it's supposed to be brought by a close relative of the captain, usually the wife, obviously.
Oh, that would have been a great scene.
I know. It would have taken 30 seconds
see that?
to have her bring the green bough of return and to have an embrace between her and her dad or her and her brother. But you got to think they shot that.
we
got
what
more
I think?
emotion, much more emotion from. And sorry, it's just a quick one. Sorry for the cutting. When Gandalf is running for Faramir, when they're leaving Minas Tirith for that charge on Osgiliath, we got there were so many scenes where you feel there was a scene missing that consists like 3 lines, like one, and that's it. And you get and the following scene becomes so much better. That's exactly like what you just said. For example, if she brought this to the ship, gold.
Yeah.
You needed 1 minute for that.
What I think for that scene, though, and it's an issue that's very significant, which is, if you just put a little bit of, shrub on the mast of the ship, as they do, as a piece of set decoration, that's one thing. If you turn it into a plot point, and it's a plot point that's taken from Unfinished Tales, you're gonna have a copyright issue on your hands.
That is true. That is true.
Yeah,
I mean,
that
they
is
don't
They
have
don't
the
have
rights
the
to
rights
tell
to
that
that
story.
material.
Yeah.
So there is this constant tap dancing around rights issues that if you really feel it.
Yeah, it's true. And in fact, it's the only thing that I've actually noticed that they really obviously had to get the rights to was the name, the mention of Armenelos, which is not in The Hobbit or The Lord of the Rings or the appendices. So they clearly negotiated that, but there's so much more that they clearly haven't negotiated, and it would have been nice to see the green bow of return. But just something, give us something to show us why Arianne is invested in this, because we know that she is a made-up character, and I'm fine with that. I have no problem with that whatsoever.
Yeah,
Tolkien didn't always explain, especially with daughters. I mean, that's just, he was writing a history, and so it was very male-centered in that case. So great, she's there, but give us a reason why she's invested. Give us a reason why she's opposed to Pharazôn supporting the queen on this. I mean, we all know what it is. She doesn't want her brother or her father to die, but it would be nice to know that she's actually not anti-elf. That she is still on the side of the faithful, like her dad and her brothers.
Well, I wanted to ask that question, actually. Do we think that her opposition to the war is purely driven by a desire not to see her remaining family leave
I
her?
hope so. I hope so, but I don't necessarily buy it.
Wouldn't it be interesting to see some inter-family dissent?
Yes.
I think it's
that's
gonna
what
happen.
they will go with. Yeah,
I think
it's gonna happen. Yeah, I think it's gonna happen eventually. And I wish that we did get to see more of that. I mean, I wish we did get to hear her opinions and I mean, eventually we'll see her develop more, in my opinion, more and more into, get a little bit more political. But I wish they did given her more depth behind her opposition at this point. But I don't think at this point her opinions are particularly developed, and I just hope it doesn't develop through her relationship with Kemen. I hope that's not the one thing that pushes her towards Pharazôn's preaching. I think just a quick one, just to finish. I do think that her being left on Númenor while everybody else is away and Pharazôn is there and he's going to be speaking to the masses, and she has been shown to be, susceptible to what he has to say, and she has been listening to his speeches and trying to get his attention. So I think eventually that's going to cause a big rift.
Yeah.
I think there is more to it, because there's a big speech Pharazôn gives in the square, and she's there listening, and she doesn't object really. And even before that, one of her earliest scenes, they talk about Galadriel, and she's like, "Why is she in Númenor?" And it's a very, not aggressive, but a very kind of. So yeah, she may be like inherently less sympathetic to elves, but there's very little of it, very little. I wish there was more, but oh well.
But you gotta feel, I mean, you absolutely have to feel for her. She's literally been left alone on Númenor. Her mother died, these two sailed away now. We don't know exactly what's happening with Anarion, but there's clearly some rift there. So it's
not appearing in this season. Yeah.
That's weird too, yeah. And I the one thing that I like, what the hell is going on in the west of Númenor? Like, what is there, like a secret city? Like, what is that?
It's the true Númenor.
Yeah, it's just not a bad thing. Just I don't know what it is. Like,
it's another mystery. You're supposed
to. So tired of the mystery box. So tired of the mystery box.
It's so overused this season. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of mystery box,
that's the setup. Yeah.
Do we all have time for one more discussion topic, one more plot line? All right. So we got another mystery box in the Southlands with the sword.
Oh,
And there's a lot that's going on that's interesting in the Southlands. Bronwyn attempts to give an inspirational speech to rally the Southlanders to fight Adar, but Waldrick says basically one thing, and half the people go with him. Theo does stay behind and bonds with Arondir before finally telling him about the sword. Arondir seems to understand that it was the key used by Morgoth to enslave Bronwyn's ancestors. Not sure how he knows that. But we, as the audience, are not any closer to truly understanding what the sword is or does. And then after losing half their people and being reminded of her ancestors' allegiance to Morgoth, Bronwyn almost gives in entirely to despair. Saying, we are, quote, we are destined for the darkness. It's how we survive. Perhaps it is who we are, who we will always be. But just as she's about to give up, she looks up at the tower and seems to have an idea about how to fight back.
Yes.
Who thinks they're gonna topple the tower as a trap?
Yeah.
I mean, setting aside that we saw it in the, trailer.
That's setting that aside.
I forgot about that, actually.
Okay. Yeah, me too.
She okay, I think this hope and despair moment was good, right? I mean, that's one of the huge central themes in Tolkien is hope against all odds, dealing with despair. I mean, again, you could look at Theoden and Denethor for a great example of the two ends of that debate. Her moment of despair there at the end is palpable, but I hope that they talk a little bit about their ability to change their fate. I mean, she talks about, maybe this is just who we are. We know, of course, being lore nuts that we are, that the music is as fate to all else, but not to men. Men have the ability to shape their fate, to change their future, to do things outside of the scope of the music. The elves do not. If this were a bunch of elves and they'd been under the foot of Morgoth this whole time, one could argue, okay, yeah, I guess that is just who you're meant to be. Too bad the music sucks for you. Oh, well. But that's not the case for men. And I'm looking forward to seeing maybe some little nod to this fate and free will argument, and the fact that men aren't bound by the music, that they can change their fate. And every time I say change their fate, I keep thinking of the movie Brave, and I keep wanting to say it in that Scottish accent, change their fate. Then Leith McPherson would jump into the live stream and tell me that I'm doing it wrong, so I'm not going to do that again.
There's something I want to throw in for the rest of the panel that takes this up, and that is I think the show seems to be setting up Numenor and the Southlands kind of as mirror images of each other in a way.
Yes.
Because we see in this episode, both groups are split in half. Like there's a character that literally says half the people are going from Numenor or going to Middle Earth, half of the Southlanders go to bow to Adar. And both we know are destined for a tragic end. Numenor under a wave, and the Southlands will become Mordor. And Numenor's downfall is caused by its turning away from its ancestral loyalty to the elves. Half of the Southlanders are similarly trying to break away from their ancestral loyalty to Morgoth.
Yes.
So they're kind of bizarro world versions of each other. And in a show that from the very beginning has set up the duality of light and dark as a central theme, I think they're trying to use the similarities and differences between the Southlands and Numenor to kind of really explore that theme. So I kind of wanted to throw that into the mix.
Nice. Yeah, the juxtaposition, it's nice.
Yeah, and just to add to that, Bill C came through with another super chat, so thank you. We really appreciate that. And the question is, can the Black Sword unlock the fury of Mount Orodruin?
I
think
so,
that's the big question right now. I mean, clearly the orcs and Nadar in particular think that the sword does have some huge I don't know, some huge power that's probably gonna remain pretty unexplained as to the specific details of the magic here. But yeah, that would be my guess. It's got something to do with Mount Doom, in my
Is
it
it kind of a
references
proto
the past?
Go ahead, Alan.
That's an interesting way to put it.
I didn't hear either one of you, so if both of you can repeat what you said.
Michael asked if it was possibly a proto ring, which I think is an interesting question. But before we explore that, I wanted to talk about this reference about the sword being a key to enslaving their ancestors. Do you remember in episode, it might have been 1 or 2, those two blur together because they were dropped at the same time. There was that moment in the Elven Watchtower when the commander is talking to Arondir, and he talks about, isn't it amazing that, this used to be a barren wilderness. This used to be just an absolute barren wasteland or something like that. like, I don't know, like maybe the results of a volcanic eruption. It certainly seems like if it was once destroyed by a volcanic eruption of Aradruin, then why wouldn't that sword be in fact a key to triggering that? I think Bill's got an interesting idea there.
Yeah, they do find ways to make the idea. One of the contrivances that I don't like, it will probably rival the Mithril thing, is the idea
Yeah.
that there's an explosion and voila, Mordor.
Yeah,
Apparently,
exactly.
you put a hilt of a sword into the microwave for 2
Boom.
seconds and you get insta Mordor. But
Yeah,
but at
it's-
the same time, to be totally fair to them, they do have the setup of, well, it was once a barren scrape of rock. There's bad grass. There's a lake that's spewing fumes. They talk about it in
They also talk about that being kind of like a backup plan. So there's also, you know.
Yeah, and that's another point, which is that it's Galadriel has this moment of, wait a minute, I must be blind, and Elrondil has the exact same thing in this episode where he looks at the hilt, and this is the outpost that he's been living in for 80 years, and he's like, oh wait, there's something behind the branch.
Exactly. Just take the ivy down, and we'll see this thing that's been there for 80 years that I've just been missing this whole time.
It's funny, like.
No, but I think
no, I understood it as he knew it was there.
Yeah,
he
he knew
just
it was
covered
there,
at some
but
point.
it got overgrown.
Yeah, but
and then he was like,
It
"Oh,
doesn't
right."
fit the elven aesthetic, so they let the overgrowth,
Yeah, it's better now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you guys think that depicts? I mean, the sword is going through a person there. What sort of
Sacrifice.
legend do you think
Blood,
is behind that?
blood is all that
Sacrifice,
binds,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Blood is all that
Right.
binds. Creation requires sacrifice. I think the show's been giving us clues about that the whole time. There's definitely, whether it's going to be Theo or Waldrick or somebody.
We see the sword grow with blood, and I guess to
Yes.
get the full effect, you need a lot of blood, so you need basically to sacrifice the full person to it. And then
That's a great
instant
callback, Alan, to Celebrimbor's statement that true creation requires sacrifice, which now that you're saying that, I mean, there is, of course, a theory out there that Sauron as Anatar is already influencing Celebrimbor, and that creation requires sacrifice now feels like it is directly tied to, Adar's approach and what we're seeing in the Southlands. That's a great callback.
I do dislike both in the parallel that you mentioned, but also if this gizmo, this hilt,
I love it,
is creating Mordor, like it's like when you get to the ring, it's like, oh, another magical object that can do great things, like it cheapens it in a way. And
It does.
absolutely the same thing is true of the downfall of Numenor. When you can change an entire landscape like that in season 1, then suddenly in season, I don't know, 3 or 4, when there's a big wave, it's like, oh, another cataclysmic event. Cool.
Right.
Like I don't know, the whole hilt thing is weird.
And it also cheapens not only the ring, but I think it also cheapens, Anduril Narsil.
Oh,
as this
totally, yeah.
ancestral swords that, the whole culture puts a lot of emphasis on. So, yeah. I wish it were something different than a sword, but another thing that I was wondering is, Theo's blood unlocks it. So do we think that?
I think it's anyone's blood, but yeah.
Oh, is it anyone's blood?
I don't
think
know.
Waldrick also had.
Because Waldrick also had,
yeah.
That's true.
But it could be that it's like the specific tribe of maybe it's like tied to them as like a tribe or something.
Yeah.
Okay.
Blood
I
oath.
thought it was something within his ancestry or something, perhaps. Okay.
Yeah, I just think it needs a lot of
Could be
blood
interesting.
to do the full thing, to get the full effect.
Well,
Does
it's a
anybody have
terraforming
any-
cheat, so you have to it's you have to type in the right codes to activate the cheat mode for terraforming.
Does anybody have any predictions about how the arcs of Numenor and the Southlands will kind of progress together? I mean, I could see them, aligning the peaks of their plot lines and the valleys of their plot lines, making certain things happen at the same time. I'm not exactly sure how that will play out, but with Numenor now coming to save the Southlands, there's going to be a very clear link. But I think even beyond that, I wonder if their arcs are really going to parallel each other. Does anybody have any ideas about how that could be accomplished narratively?
Ooh, that's a tricky one.
Honestly, I'm lost. Like I'm still trying to get over the whole everything that's happening with Numenor storyline. So I'm struggling, not struggling, but it's like a pretty big thing to imagine what they're going with in the future with Numenor. So I don't know how to fit this with Southlands, especially because they're like pretty much an original story.
Yeah, and we also don't know what's.
Yeah. it
don't
makes
know
sense
where
that
the
they would
Southlands
make
are
them
going.
fit or something. Like as you said, it makes it that their storylines would be going parallel and maybe have some sort of like a parallel ending of sorts, at least thematically. But I don't know. I actually, okay, I got it. I figured it out. So Numenor turns away from Valar, and the elves they sink, but Southlands will do the opposite, and then some of them will maybe migrate in Gondor, and then continue on living.
I actually think once Mordor goes, boom, that the
soon.
Southlanders,
Very soon.
next episode, I think the Southlanders that will survive, and they seem to survive the explosion pretty much unscathed, will go to somewhere like, for season 2 at least, for somewhere like Umbar or something, and so we will be able to see those places through the eyes of a Bronwyn or a Theo.
Yeah. Or maybe they'll
Given
split.
how-
Maybe Waldron and his crew will end up in Far Harad or in Umbar, whereas the good ones will end up somehow in what will become Gondor or Kalanarvan or something along those lines. It's possible.
I was gonna say it's kind of far away for them to go to like Harad, but then again, how they treat their distance, it doesn't matter really. So it's okay. But I think that's a pretty good idea if they could like split.
Yeah,
that could work definitely.
But yeah, I think that eruption's coming pretty soon. I mean, we've all seen that scene in the trailers of Galadriel, opening her eyes in the ash, and that's clearly coming here very soon because we've seen that happens, right after the Numenorians, led by Galadriel, arrive in the Southlands. So whether that's the next episode or the one after, it's clearly coming.
I think
up
it's
this
in
season.
the preview to the next episode, isn't it?
Yeah.
I
think
have those previews always been only the next episode, or they've been from here to the rest of the season?
I think
have to
so
check.
far they've been next episode, and I think it also says in the title for the preview. It's like,
I know though why you're skeptical about it, because it feels like an end of season event thing.
It
right?
kind of does. That sort of cataclysmic
but
deal.
I think I know why it's not, which is
Yeah.
if this season ends with the thing where like the explosion happens while I'm Mordor, it means one thing. It means that Galadriel has failed like totally miserably, and they're just not gonna end on such a downer for that character. They're gonna let her do something. I don't know what, but something.
I think so too. But just a quick interjection. Bill C came through with another super chat, so thank you so much. We really appreciate it. And the comment he had was, "The rings are worse. They're a subtle dark art seduction." So I mean, I think this was in regard with the
the sword, right?
With the sword,
Which is
but
blunt,
that is absolutely true. Yeah.
Well, while we're talking about
and
Bill
it
C, I
fits
do want to
with,
remind people real quick, just a quick interjection. We're coming up on the end of the stream pretty soon here, so if you want to get a chance at getting some of Kip's art, get your super chats in. Right now, Bill C is running the table, so it looks like he's coming for a second week win. Yeah, he won last week, and he might win again this week. But if anybody wants to get the chance in there, get your super chats in because we got a few more minutes. Go ahead, Strider.
Yeah, well, I wanted to just throw in a few things that I've been thinking about, so maybe we can quickly comment on that. I just want to hear somebody's opinion on this. So it's kind of all over the place. So first of all, I think that the grove that the Harfoots are going to, I think we're gonna end up seeing Entwives.
Oh,
there.
That would be wonderful.
I think that's one. The second is that if Halbrand ends up being Sauron, I will continue praying that that's not going to happen, but it's getting there. If he ends up being Sauron, I think that Adar might have pushed Sauron away in some sorts, and the theory is that he, because of his relationship towards the orcs, just had their support and kind of squeezed this guy out because he was like not a nice guy as Adar is. I mean, he's a villain, but he's definitely having more dimensions to him. And the third thing is, what do you think is the purpose of the tunnels that the orcs are digging? Because they said they're done. And my thought was, it's weird. It's kind of very simplistic, but that maybe it will be to spread the lava from the volcano for some reason. But I don't know why they would want to do that, but I'm seeing it as that. So Entwives in the grove, Adar pushing out Sauron, and tunnels to spread lava.
Well, the last one, the tunnels, the tunnels, they've suggested that it was for the purpose of trying to search for the sword,
Yeah.
but it's not so they can move around in darkness, right? But why would the tunnels then be done several scenes after they've identified where the sword is? The two seem not to be linked in that respect. So that is a good question.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit difficult to make a tunnel all the way up to the top of the waterfall and just right underneath the tower. So unless that's what they're going for.
Yeah.
I hope it's gonna be resolved at any rate. I hope it's not just a sort of a, I don't know, dramatic tool to push the story forward and to get the army going. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good. I didn't catch that actually at all, the tunnel thing. But okay, yeah. The Endwives, I'm not sure. I've seen someone do a very nice sketch of the montage and where they're heading. I think they're heading east, like more east than the land of the Endwives, and maybe
but
the
it's
Sea of Rune
it's
or
still in that
somewhere.
general area, and they were. Oh, actually, one more reason why it could fit. They were destroyed, like by Sauron in a way, or like directly or indirectly, whatever. But they were destroyed through actions of Sauron in the second day. Actually, not in the second age.
Possible.
But it fits because of the general area. Plus, maybe that's what happens when the mountain explodes.
But that's the Brownlands are a little bit far away, I think.
They are, but again, the distance, the magic volcano, the whole thing.
Can you guys remind me? Did we the shot of the Endwives or Ents at any rate that we've seen in the trailer? Have we seen that in episode 1 when the meteor came? Have we already seen them? Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah,
I think that's
meteor
like
flyover.
For now, that would be what we will get of the Ents. But who's to say?
On this point, we got a super chat from Jared Went.
Yeah.
He says tunnels carry the lava, so there's a vote in favor of that potential.
Oh, I don't know. There's a question mark at the end of that.
That's true. That's a demand to explain. Strider, explain. Tunnels carry the lava?
Well, so it's like this very specific scientific thing, actually. Like the old Egyptians found out that when you go to China, you dig. I don't know. Like, I'm just trying to make sense of it. I know. I'm just trying to make sense of it because, as you said, like they know where the sword is.
Yeah.
And then we finished the tunnel. Or the tunnels, and then it has to be a part of this major plan. So I don't know why. We know that kind of the end game is the but they're like in a tower on a hill. That's the confusing part.
Yeah,
Alan, you think
but it will make sense.
I'm thinking of simultaneous attacks on some other human locations. Maybe I don't know. It's the only thing I can think of. But
I agree.
It seems like more of a tactical thing to be able to strike and travel during the day. Clearly that's something we're being set up to be reminded of, that these orcs are very, very allergic to vitamin D or vitamin K, whatever it is that we get in sunlight, right?
Vitamin D minor.
D.
So but I think it goes hand in hand with the thing that Adar was saying to the unfortunate orc whose arm was getting that sunburn, when he said, I wish you could see the sun like I do. It's going to be going away soon, and I'm going to, the part of me that misses its warmth will go too. Okay, that again, volcanic eruption, clouding the sun, preventing us from seeing the sun. That's going to be related. So maybe some way for them to travel to places that'll be safe from the volcanic eruption. Possibly.
Oh, so okay.
Devin Patel actually also proposed the same thing in the chat. So yeah.
And Strider, to answer your question about Adar and Sauron and the relationship there, I think Adar wants the benefit of the orcs, twisted as it is, whereas Sauron wants to use the orcs as a mindless force. So I think they may be antagonistic to each other in that way. We'll see.
Well, if
we saw the reaction.
We need to know more about Adar, I guess, before.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that he didn't confirm or deny. I mean, he basically threw Waldrick down. I can neither confirm nor deny that I am Sauron, and he throws him to the ground. And either that or no spoilers. I'm not sure which he said, but in either case, it's clear that we're still supposed to think that he might be, and we're still supposed to think Halbrand might be, and we're still supposed to think Meteor Man might be, and clearly, I think we're supposed to think that Gil-galad might be,
and Malva,
and Malva,
and Malva.
If I had to
was it Cowron, right? Was that
Cowron?
Can I throw in something really interesting? Has anybody noticed that you've got the 3 cultists looking at the footprints of the Harfoots, and then later we see 3 wolves and their footprints.
Yeah.
I think the number is significant.
Werewolves,
Shapeshifters.
Sauron could fit. We see the moon.
Yeah, but
Again, they don't look
shouldn't
like
make
the
sense, but-
wolf. They don't look like the wolf that we saw in episode 1 when they were in that old farm. They look different. So I don't know.
So it could be. I mean, like werewolves and Sauron, that there is a connection there. So that's an interesting one. I'm not sure how I would feel about it.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not saying I like the idea.
Yeah.
Who knows?
But yeah. I'm for sure they want us to think that there's something sinister. I think from the way they're shot, the way they're presented. I think there's the music. So,
everything was sinister. Yeah.
Right.
It wasn't.
Wouldn't that be a fun twist if they actually turned out to be good guys, just looking for Harfoots so they can hang out and pal around?
Yeah.
The 3 wise men, basically, they come from
right.
Yeah.
They're looking for someone who is looking for a star, but
and they do have the symbol of the constellation on one of the items.
Yeah.
So
the back of the shield.
They're definitely looking for. But actually, I think you proposed this like yesterday or something, that the 3 wise men, they're coming by following the stars to find a person, and then there's like this king that's being mentioned around.
I'm Jewish. You're
kind of like a. I'm not saying it is, but they could be going for like
If
the
they break
symbolism
out
of
the
that.
gold, frankincense, and myrrh, I am done.
I think one of the showrunners is quite devout, right?
They're both devout Mormons, from my understanding. Yes.
Yeah. So maybe, I don't know.
But
it's
if they break out the gold, frankincense, and myrrh, they won't tell you what those items are because they have a rights issue.
Yeah, you're right. Definitely would have a rights issue.
Yeah,
there.
it's one of those things where it's plus or change, like.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're coming up on the end of our discussion here. I'm glad we were able to touch on the Mystics. I was worried we'd leave them behind. We didn't really get a chance to talk too much about the Stranger, although we did touch on the beginning. Still, the Harfoot's still surprisingly my favorite storyline.
Yeah.
But we covered a lot of ground, and I think had a great discussion. And I want to thank everybody, in particular you, Alan, for joining us and for staying basically twice as long as you had originally planned. So really,
I enjoyed it. You kidding me? Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Why don't you tell everyone where they can find you? You're prolific. You're putting out a lot of stuff right now, and let them know.
The Prancing Pony podcast, of course, is our walkthrough of Tolkien's Legendarium. So if you're interested in going through the books with us, we're currently just starting The Return of the King, but we've got 6 seasons in the past with The Silmarillion, The Hobbit, and each of the first 4 books of The Lord of the Rings. And so we've still got several years to go there. And then, of course, we've recently started the Rings of Power wrap-up. You can listen to our reaction episodes, which come out within 24 hours of the Amazon drop, which is a challenge. It means we can't go 2+ hours, right? We have to do it in a shorter period of time. But we also did some, before Sean left, we were also able to do some foundational episodes on the races, and those are worth listening to as well. So you can find us at Rings Wrap-Up for that one, and at Prancing Pony Pod for the main show.
And Katie, who is
she's posted the links. Excellent.
And she's moderating this stream as well, which we're very grateful for. She's posting the links there in the chat, so you can find.
Yeah, she is our event coordinator and Patreon community coordinator as well. So it's good to see her helping out everybody else as well.
Yeah, she's very generous with her time, and we appreciate that tremendously. Strider, I wanted to give you a chance to talk a little bit about Fellowship of Fans leaks that have been confirmed so far. You got a running list.
Yeah, so this time it's not such a comprehensive list as it was in the previous episode. So yeah, for people who may have tuned in recently to our channel, we've been doing a lot of pre-hype of the show while Amazon was being silent. There was a lot of stuff that we discovered and shared with everyone. So in this episode, some new things that have turned out to be true of our leaks, and we so far have a pretty good record. Meteor Man might be evil. So there were a few definitely shots there where, it wasn't really clear what's happening there. Meteor Man will use his powers to protect the Harfoots. Scene of Iarian seeing Isildur go to war and not wanting Isildur to join the army.
Mm-hmm.
The Númenóreans are excited and happy to go off to war as they are inexperienced and don't know the dangers of the war. So it kind of feels like the USA going to World War I, and like the whole world being shocked what happens there.
Yeah.
And the last one, Galadriel, Elendil, Miriel, Isildur will all be on the same ship sailing to Middle Earth. So that's the leaks that have been more or less confirmed in this episode so far. So far we are doing pretty well with all the things.
Still batting almost 1,000, right?
Pretty much.
That's good.
We appreciate all the good work you do there. I do fully expect to see some more leaks coming into season 2. I imagine you're not going to have quite as many because now we've got a whole season. It's not much has been kept secret.
We're not going to need as many.
Yeah, exactly.
Also true.
Exactly. But I will still be
but there was this pretty long silent period of Amazon. This was definitely, even before I joined Fellowship, it was interesting to hear these new things because we knew nothing, next to nothing about the show except like the very broadest of descriptions. So I think this was pretty fun for at least for the lore fans and people who were like really interested in the show in the past few years. I think it was pretty cool.
Yeah,
so Strider, Lakitia, and thanks to all of you for joining the panel. What's the next thing that Fellowship does? You're putting out a lot of videos and you have other panels as well. So tell people what's the next sort of stream that they can look for from Fellowship.
We have our weekly Wednesday prediction streams where a lovely group of people gather together to chat about the episode that they've seen and what they're expecting to see in the next episode. So look forward to that. Fellowship also does the weekly breakdown videos where he, or I think it's more
like Easter eggs and
Easter eggs, yeah. I think that one's normally released on Fridays. So yeah, and expect lots of surprises between now and then as well. So.
And our friend Warking, who has been doing the whole technical part. Here he is. Okay, he can tell you the whole thing.
I just wanted to say I enjoyed the entire panel today, especially the newbie panel. I always get a kick out of that one. And I love seeing Alan and hearing Alan, Prancing Pony Podcast, Rings of Power wrap up. I do really enjoy your stuff, and a lot of the time that we got to spend together at different events for Tolkien.
It's been great.
Kind of an honor to have you on. And then as for me, I'm not getting sleep. We're trying to help out, hook up everything.
Thursday nights. There's no sleep on Thursday nights. That's for sure.
But that's right. Thursday nights, staying up late until midnight to watch the show 2 times to. Turn in a couple notes and then get ready to start coming up with interview questions for whoever our guest will be on the Saturday Reddit talks. But I also just want to say, Mike, you do a tremendous job up here leading throughout the panel, keeping everybody on track. I really
our captain.
That.
Yes.
And shout outs to Kyle. This is a lot harder than people think. And I can't wait for him to be back on the next one.
As long as he has not been swept away by Hurricane Fiona, he will be back next week.
He confirmed a little bit ago he has power again.
Yes.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Good.
Okay.
Is it a power as pure and light as good?
And as strong and no.
Yeah.
All right. Last
we come full circle
in the show.
Last thing for this stream, and we've been kind of I wanted to buy a little time so we could get our winner of the raffle, and no surprise, Bill C yet again runs the table and wins the raffle. He's getting 2 pieces from Kip Rasmussen. So thank you so much, Bill, for the super chats, and we'll get in touch and coordinate all that with you. And for the rest of you, please do again hit up Kip's store, Fellowship 30 at checkout. That's the discount code, Fellowship 30 at checkout for 30% off of everything in his Etsy shop, which is a lot. He's got a lot of options. So if you want to deck out your house, like Bill C undoubtedly has every single square inch of his house very soon to be covered with Tolkien art, hit up his shop. Other than that, again, thank you all. Thanks, Varking. Thanks, Katie, for moderating the chat. And thank you, everybody out there, for watching. We really, really appreciate it. And we'll see you next time, next Sunday, same bat time, same bat channel, to talk about episode 6.
All right.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.